questions next time after I read it.
Yeah, there's not much time between 3:45 and 7.
There we go. Thank you.
All right, we ready? 7 o'clock. Let's go ahead and get started. Call the work session together at 7 o'clock. Roll call, no one's doing it.
John Tyler. Scott Johnson.
Steve Meisner.
Cindy Brewer.
The second meeting she's missed.
Now, we have on the agenda, item A, to present, discuss auditor confusion with calendar events. So he is, he wouldn't be here today. So we're going to table that. He will be here on the 1st of November. And I know a couple of us are already not going to be here on the 1st. So that's the night that he would mark on his calendar to be available to come and look at that. We will discuss his letter that he provided to us as a summary, of his findings. And we'll do that here in just a little bit. The other change that I'd like to make is to kind of combine, if you will, items B and items E. The grand jury subpoena, many of you know, was a subpoena that was just issued to us a month ago, 5 weeks ago, something like that, I don't remember the exact date, to subpoena the records for the last 5 years. And those, everything was provided provided to Texas Rangers, and then that result has come back with the findings, and we'll be discussing that here, combined with item E. So what I've done is I've asked Crystal Rich, she's one of our citizens here in the area. She lived, her and husband William lived in Falcon Ridge for a couple of years. But she has some exposure with the crisis management, public speaking, ghostwriting, I don't know what ghostwriting is, but maybe she can tell us. Speech writing, coaching, and managing large social media businesses. So I've asked her to come and help us with managing a meeting tonight. She's got some expertise there I think will help us. And going through some of the items we want to talk about in E and D concerning the Open Meetings Act, Texas Public Information Act, and some of the conflict of behavior that have occurred for the last several months. My intent with this is not to really poke fingers, but to make things better. To do those things that we have a responsibility to do as council members, and that is to do our very best and present improvements back to the. So with that, Chris, if there's anything else that I missed, first, choose to put together a presentation so we'll be able to look at this and help us understand things that might help us get on the track.
Absolutely. Thank you for allowing me to be a part of what I do is going to be explaining as we move forward. A lot of people might ask why do you volunteer to facilitate such a discussion? And I think the reason why I volunteer to facilitate such a discussion is because I'm family to the side too, I'm sure. Is because as some of this was unfolding, I started doing a little bit of digging myself and trying to understand where our community was, where would my skills be best used. I toyed with the idea of perhaps joining the esteemed people on the council. And I realized early on that I was probably getting involved into a situation that I wasn't quite well informed of yet. But I knew I had skills that I wanted to volunteer to the city. And I bring, some experience in some crisis and grant protection pieces in my experience. And so I just want to kind of dive in and kind of talk about what do you mean when you say working in crisis, right? The technical definition of a crisis, the very last piece of it really is, around what does it mean to people who are seeing what's going on inside of their space? Are they perceiving your actions as by the best intent of the body that you're representing? Are they confused on it? And that very last piece, that last line there, public distrust resulting in reputational issues. And I think we can all say we're all feeling kind of some of the public divide. And for me, I never want to be part of a division. I want to be part of a solution. And so that's why I'm volunteering my time, is because I do have experience navigating some of these situations. And I think it's really important to notate, right? Like, you can have difficult conversations. You can even have wide disagreements within your body. Personally, really like that the council disagrees with one another. So that means to me that you're having the conversations that you should be having on behalf of your citizens. Where I think that we need to maybe figure out what could we do a little bit different in the future is how do we protect our brands, right? We have our personal brands are at play. If anyone wants to go get a job somewhere, from their next employer, employers are actively doing social media scrubs. We have our brands within our community. What do we want to be known for? And so these are all things that are really, really, really important to me. And I always ask people, like, is the city in crisis? And there's some key indicators. I'm not going to read you a slide. You guys are all grown adults and can read slides. But the key piece to if you're in a crisis is, are you operating as one body or are you operating as individuals? And I think, the consensus is we do have some individuality happening along the way. And rightfully so, there's some very charged, situations at hand, but citizens are really going to expect you as a council to kind of have big disagreements behind doors and then come out and treat one another with respect. And I know that that's tough whenever you're dealing with some of these large issues at hand and emotions are at play, but I always like to remind people your words have power. And your actions have power. Even the unintended consequences from our best intentions can kind of drive a divide, even if we're not, intentionally doing that. So, here, what are you trying to solve? The city has been through a lot, and what we're trying to solve, I think, in one of these sessions that I am, able to help navigate and facilitate through this, is you're really trying to rebuild trust within, the people that you represent, trust with one another, trust in the community. And so we can talk about all of the things that kind of got us to this point, and we absolutely will. But at the end of the day, there's some very desirable things depending on who you are. And I've done a lot of time in the last couple of weeks, kind of just taking it all in, looking and seeing what other people are perceiving, what people are saying. And so, you've got two desirable options up there. Some people want to see the council come together and work together. You have some people that want to see parts of the council, resign or, there could be a vote to remove, right? That's a difficult thing to talk about, but it is something that I think that we have to talk about. And then we also have a lot of potential litigation at this point in the game. And so we really, this piece of this particular presentation is where it starts to get uncomfortable. Because you start to kind of figure out, well, where do I sit? What's my desired outcome? What do I want to see happen? And so before we move into discussing it or figuring it out, there's some I think that keep us us all grounded as humans and individuals. We should err on purpose and not emotion. We shouldn't use dehumanizing language, and what I mean by that is I've seen some posts online, and I've seen some people engaging in heated conversation, or maybe they didn't use the nicest terms or the nicest ways to communicate with another human. So I think you can be mindful, you can be direct, while still being compassionate. And so that's what, I'm grounded, I think, as we enter this discussion. It is not my place to share my personal opinion. My personal opinion is completely irrelevant right now. It really is more around my professional opinion, more our desire for things that we're trying to get to. What I can do is at any given point in the conversation, if you were to ask me, what do you think, or what do you think the unintended consequences are, or what do you think the other party might see, I can kind of try and offer that. I think we need to have a commitment to resolution, whatever that resolution may be, and then remaining on the task at hand. Some of us have been watching some of the council meetings, and it's a little hard sometimes to watch, because you're not quite sure which topic is being discussed where. So I'd like to make sure that one of the ground rules is that if I'm doing a good job as a facilitator, I'm keeping us on the items that we want to talk and ask anyone if they have any questions of me before I'll go into the next slide and get into some of this discussion.
Kind of sounds like what we said in our Robert's Rules of Parliament. So it really applies.
So is there any way we could get your background and why they should listen to you?
I don't think anyone should listen to me for any reason other than, I do have some expertise on crisis management and brand protection. I've navigated a couple of large Fortune companies through crisis. I've been tasked with providing the ghostwriting behind the scenes. That usually is, let's say someone's the president of a business unit and they want to send out a communication. They would come to me and ask me, hey, how will this land? What am I not? These are my intentions. And I can usually, navigate and provide some feedback and some thoughts there. Why you should listen to me? Well, I hope that you at least listen to me and hear me out and trust my intent is merely just to be a better part of our city going forward. I've intentionally stepped out of any the division that may happen because I have had countless years of unbiased training, conscious bias, unconscious bias, diversity training, all of those things that make us able to have heated discussions and kind of come forth with, I'm going to leave my personal opinion behind me, but resolution-based conversations is where I really think that, my skills could help.
So I'm a little, I don't want to say confused, but I am.
Yeah.
So what are we getting into here? Is this just a presentation for information, or are you're going to help guide the council through this whole meeting?
The idea is for this particular topic, and then I will there, that I help facilitate the conversation as a third party, just to help facilitate the conversation.
Okay. And the city obviously hasn't hired you. You're doing this because you're a citizen and you care.
Absolutely.
Okay.
So did you approach our mayor? Did you approach her? How'd that work?
I approached her after I heard and wanted that help on that.
And the topics at hand are the work session. Okay, going through the work session. Okay.
Anymore. I believe in that 20 seconds of uncomfortable silence before I move on to it.
Yeah, no, let everybody stew it in a second.
Yeah. Are there any specific asks of me as I navigate this conversation where you are? I really want to serve you all in a way that is meaningful.
I'm curious to see how this works, so.
Well, item E, we've talked about this numerous times, it's discussed the need for city council procedures and foreign policy, Texas open meeting, act, blah, blah, blah. And the council procedures of decorum, it appears to be that if the minority doesn't agree with the majority, then we're doing something wrong. That's not the case. I don't work for the city council. I work for the citizens of the city.
And I do think I tend to lean into disagreement because it's one thing, because I really believe that's where the best work happens. And so I think that's where, for me volunteering to do this, I kind of did my toe in and I got my heart a little hurt that people didn't know my intent. And there was some inaccurate assumptions about how I was swayed one way or the other. Entirely inaccurate, it's also relevant. But I think that I, as a citizen, we need people who disagree. Because if you are all doing and acting exactly the same, then we might be missing some things that can do our city better. But I don't believe, as a citizen, I've seen the best behaviors from the people I would expect that are represented. So that is my personal opinion there. I've done a little bit of research. I've connected with other citizens. I've tried to make sure that my bias isn't included in there. But these are often questions that, if I were sitting in your shoes, I would ask myself. And it's, what are you known for versus what you want to be, right? And I think that question grounds you in intent. Intent is very important whenever you start talking about the things with people. And you're talking about people's lives, you're talking about people, right? And then, how long are you invested in the improvement process? And this one is probably one that's going to get a little bit of a hot topic, but I'm going to put it out there because I really do believe in being a direct communicator. There are citizens out there that would say, we have people on the council that have for sale signs in front of their houses or have sold their houses. Are you really invested in me long term? Are you invested in this community long term? So you also have an opportunity to decide what is your groundwork, right? Where are you invested? And then, as we get into this conversation, there's some stuff that, we're going to show some audit results and different things there. And so we might really have to ask ourselves, what do we want more? Do we want to get right more, or do we want to serve our city and our citizens? So I think if we're going at that with this piece of information and these questions surrounding us, then let the difficult discussions come up. Have the tough conversations. Disagree with your counsel, because it's not that to disagree. Right? You have a lot of talk about this $1,200 finding. And in this $1,200 discrepancy or inaccuracy or whatever you want to call it, there's a lot of other actions that happen. This converts people with questions about, that's awesome. You might have got $1,000, but what do you spend to get there? And this is the scary numbers for me. I did not see these too much, long ago, but it's look at the numbers that are here. These are the numbers that have been provided to me for the state of facility. And we're at $57,100 in Miramar County. I do want to make sure we talk about other things conferences here, possible litigation, and then you can so I would ask, is $1,200 for that? haven't had to do it. I'm not going to do it. I feel like, look at these people. You can come up with something like this. So I feel like we should keep conversations after, what other people do. I didn't know.
So nobody has seen this presentation. This presentation is workshop, and this was put together, and I got the final version.
Could be wrong. I thought workshop, and council discussion, and I think you have to discuss.
We can't hear Julie.
Because there's a lot of, you're saying, you spent for $1,200 to work here, and that's something that wasn't the point. So I feel like attacking one little bit of what that person brought out to life, it's kind of an unfair thing to do. When a lot more than just that, and those people aren't here to defend their position. So I feel it's one-sided.
Well,
This is a very. Because those are the things that you need to have discussion with, so we're gonna get better. You know, I agree. And that was their fault, is not that
I agree, it wasn't just, she presented it as, we wanted to know about this, and now it's all this, paying a lawyer to listen to this.
there's an opinion, because I think the $1,200 that you're talking about, is not to make work. Somebody still does it.
No, I mean, he brought it to life.
Well, who brought it?
Yeah. Okay,
And there's-
I agree with that. Somebody who.
Somebody brought it to life.
And a law is broken. A law is broken, pure intent.
Well, we can't say that. Can we say that, Larry?
But even,
Can we say a law was broken? Something illegal occurred?
but even,
Well, I want to answer that question because these kind of go.
I would wait till closed session, but we did discuss that in closed session.
I agree, we need to wait for closed session first.
Why?
That's being brought up that it was said in closed session. Or is it free for all?
No, he made,
Okay,
he made a statement. He made a statement. He made a statement, and I'm just curiously asking the questions. We're not digging into details of closed session. You also said something about somebody defending themselves. Well, these are not things that have to be defended. These are
Then don't bring it
things.
up.
What is there to defend? Somebody brought an allegation. They don't have to defend it. It's their allegation.
He just said that because somebody had a question about 1,200, it cost the city 5,100, and that is not accurate. So I'm saying, if we're
Okay.
gonna get into things and start throwing figures out, we need to know what's happening and what's not.
Right.
So that's not the figure.
Right. So real quick, no one I want
Go back to.
I want he made a comment, and this is part of civil discussion. Laws were broken. Larry, can we say that? Because I don't believe that's true.
No one knows what's not been now.
So to speak to that though, on October 7th, we were notified by the Texas Rangers that no law has been broken, that the investigation to financial transactions at the city of New Fairview has come to a conclusion and there are no irregularities.
And
So-
no grand jury finding.
What?
No grand jury finding.
The
They didn't
investigation,
go that far.
the investigation is closed.
Okay.
So they were looking for any type of financial transaction which would be eligible for prosecution. And they've closed the investigation.
The whole investigation.
So, because that instance fixed itself, things, as I said earlier, things are now being done differently, so what that person brought to light will not happen anymore.
And that's what should.
And step, right,
Yeah.
indicate if that didn't get brought to light? No, it would still be the way it was originally. So that's what I'm saying, there's a lot of stuff being said here that is.
Okay, I think we beat that horse to death.
Yeah, I just want to make one point. This slide here is to show the citizen how much money we have spent today. On all of these, not just $400. That's just a small little thing.
And it has to
All
go
the thing has to be there. I'm sure let's say it's moving to do the aisle. And we have to do a lot of administrative duties, $12,000 is testimony to administrative duties. So that's what it shows, and I think that's what the citizens want to see. We're open, and transparent. Well, this slide was to be transparent to the city.
I agree.
Okay, so that says administrative leave today ongoing. Larry,
That's a typo. That should not have been there.
okay.
It's-
So
it's-
it's not ongoing.
10-1 was the last.
So the majority of the city council fired that individual, then that stopped. Is that correct?
She was removed from office.
Removed him.
So that's another, thing. I think we are employees.
Absolutely.
who put up a- I mean, that had nothing to do with the council, that had to do with something. We didn't even have control.
So, and you're right, so this person made bad life choices here recently that ended up costing us a large.
I can grab this and get it back. One of these prices. The mayor gave me the information, I tried to put it in a little bit. Just walking around. But I think it's like, it's also your in terms of brand and prices, because that's what a lot of people call. Okay, we. We can't.
Good point.
I understand that. So you may be presenting some stuff that's happening in a heat of a moment. In a heat of the middle of the argument. And then, so to go back over and to rehash one wrong stuff, but what's in the player here, to me, seems like a little kind of weakness at it.
Well, and there's the personal point about, do we get the resolution or do we continue to beat the horse?
And here we are.
Well, so the council,
You brought it up. I love it.
the council is the only body that has the ability to bring that situation to resolution.
Right.
She's an appointed employee because we still have citizens that are asking, how much money has this?
But part of the resolution,
So you're saying we should not answer the question that the citizens are requesting? So you're saying nobody cares about what the city spent over these last 8 weeks? Scott, were you aware that the city had spent $57,000? Were you, John? Were you, Steve? Were you? I'm just saying, this is not readily available. This is new information that the mayor said we need to be transparent and let the citizens know. So the mayor asked for these numbers. These numbers were pulled out of our financial system and given to him. He shared them with the facilitator so that we could have a conversation about where we are, what the circumstances are. Yeah, because we had an individual that was on administrative leave, and the only people that could change that outcome is the city council. So it was the council's choice to take and extend this to the amount of time.
That was not our, we said over and over. Even after completion, that was not.
Julie, the administrative leave is my choice.
Right.
The council taking action and saying, no, we're not going to accept that, or we want her reinstated, or we want her removed from office is the council's choice. The council has the right to say we want to take action on it or not. I requested action on it for almost every agenda from the time that I told you that we were going to place her on administrative leave, and it continued to get tabled and kicked down the road.
Now, I was sitting in this chair a year and a half ago when we started taxes. And there were 200 people in that office who screamed at me about paying some woman $76,000 to not ever open the door to this office. So I know 200 and something people who sat in that office.
I think we have a way to
Let's go to a resolution like, how do we lay it to rest? There's a good question.
But I really want to, you know, I don't think that I do want to follow. If there are ways around, we think it's more about it. I'm hearing some of the underneath that I'm some of it, some of them, that it's not about making number, it's not about the people are relevant to this discussion. If you want to move into that, I have to develop this way and try to the support. And those people can kind of talk to you. They're not being heard. We have plans for that. Absolutely. I think part of some of the behaviors that we saw, what we can do, they can, absolutely. But with that intention of that, you know, there's a little bit of there's a intent, they can say, I know whether it's so that's a little back to the question, when you would like to do the work for a bit. They don't. So I think the mayor's intent was that open up the door, so here's where we are, and I see findings that are on this slide.
They have that. That was in the October 3rd council meeting. Yeah, you said that you wanted commenting turned off because people were abusing. Yeah. Or they can fill out a form and they can send it in and they can speak virtually.
That was what you did.
A lot of the citizens are saying, those who want to, you know, your family, you know, the pension, why are people, why is it coming? We can only hear bangs.
Okay,
Just let me know what you're saying.
is that the online meeting? Is that what you have? Is that what they're saying? Is it? Okay, on the Facebook group. Well,
So, because this is the work that
Julie, pull the mic closer to your mouth and they'll be able to hear you.
so Nolan,
I mean, the only one I'm hearing is Ben. Everybody's,
this is before Nolan, you need to talk right there. No, it does not. I have a hard time hearing it, so I could agree with that. Now, their comment, because it is a work session, I can see where we're just working through it. But as far as not hearing it, that's not good. We need to. Okay, so this is. So one of my comments from the previous slide about audit. A lot of people, I don't know, my wife is an auditor for the government in the airports division. And I don't think people understand the word audit. Audit is not something that you can play with. It's not something you can direct. If it is a complete audit, it is a step-by-step process. You have a license. The U.S. government verifies that license. And if you do not do what your certification says, then you lose that license and your livelihood. I don't think people understand that running an audit means that's someone's livelihood. There's no favoritism. There's no, I know Joe Blow over here or whatever. It's an audit. If the audit comes to no findings, that means there's no findings. And there's no questions to it, but yet we've done a complete deep dive audit. And yet we have discussion here that the audit is not truthful or not complete, or this person, as it was put in a text to me, this audit was directed and it was limited. The word audit is an oxymoron to those two words.
That's what I'm feeling.
So, okay, well, and see, so we have those feelings. So how do we,
Everybody has a right to their opinion.
correct, so how do we get to a resolution to understand that point, being back to this page? Is there a way? Because I continue to hear that, and Steve, you just said that too. So how do we get everybody to understand that or to get to that point? And some people just don't want to, I understand.
So, yeah.
Mayor.
So, let me ask the question to you.
Don't back it up, pull it forward.
I don't want to eat on it.
Yeah, you do, actually.
The question I have is, if you don't like the audit, you think it was unfair or biased or whatever, I think that's what I heard you say, Steve, right?
That's correct.
How do you think, I mean, this is an auditor that we voted on as a committee.
Actually,
as a
Joe Max
council.
hired these people, didn't
Yes, they hired him. This council hired them after that.
But we just give them a
Here's
3-year
my
contract.
question. Here's my question about the audit. And if this is fact, then I'll be done with it forever. Was the auditor, did he come in here and say, here's the file, take anything you want? That's the way it was done? Or did he take only what you provided?
He
went
reviewed
through every
100%
transaction.
of every transaction the city had. He looked at
He had-
every,
He had access to everything. It
That's the
wasn't provided
definition of
by
an
you.
audit.
he had access to every record, every file, he has access to our finance package. He can pull up our finance package, run any report he wants to run, access to all of the support documents, all of the receipts, invoices, everything.
So as an auditor, if you don't have access, that's a finding. You write that bigger than life, right at the top. They did not have this documentation, or I was not allowed to see this. At that point, the auditor walks out because that was his job. And you get a report that says major findings. If they say no findings, that means everything was available and touched upon. That's kind of what an audit is, but that's a good point. It's a good point,
And
Steve.
you remember when the first audit to the last audit, is, we went through
So
140 transactions.
Yeah.
Went through 140 transactions, and Julie was sitting right here, and she said, but I didn't give them everything. I didn't have everything. So that's when we came back, and we said, okay, we're gonna have another audit, right? And we're gonna do every transaction from October 1, 2020
Yeah.
to the end of this fiscal year, and that's what we did. 100% of the transactions were passed.
Okay, so go ahead, I'm sorry, I got that.
No, that was my question was answered.
Okay.
If he had absolute access to everything, not just, I want this and read about it, did he have access to the file, the financial records, every credit card expenditure, everything, did he have access to all that? Then that is a, you know.
he had access to 100% of the records and staff. So questions, comments, whatever,
And then the
whatever you
only
want to do.
other, one of the city citizen is saying that if it's okay, quote unquote, by audit or by your contract to spend X amount of money, does that necessarily mean that we should or have to spend X amount of money? Or can we go into a little bit of a saving mode since we're a small city with limited funds? Do we have to spend everything because it's there?
Well,
Now, I know that's not gonna be an audit
Didn't
thing.
we
This
do
is
that at
just
the last
a
council
question from the
meeting?
citizen.
Well, let me,
Right.
okay, and I want to rule this in a little bit too, really in a little bit. We cannot take comment from citizens. We're not taking it for those that are in the room. We will not take it from those online. Okay? We're going to be fair across the board.
And to speak to that, the only area where we are over budget is on legal fees related to this current situation. So the council,
No, not just this current situation. Some of those legal fees were caused by you in her, Cindy Poe.
Steve, those legal fees are the result of council members making claims that illegal financial transactions occurred, that we were being investigated by the Texas Rangers due to criminal activity.
That's a true fact.
That is not a true fact.
It is too. We were being investigated. The city was being investigated.
You didn't say the city.
It wasn't necessarily the city. That's true. It wasn't necessarily.
The city is the person who's received the grand jury subpoena. There were no individuals. So in my world, when you make a statement that is factually incorrect, it's a lie. So we have council members that are spreading false information to the community about these issues specifically.
It's legal.
You believe it, yes.
We're gonna get all that.
No.
The audit did not locate any discrepancies. As of right now, it was all.
That's good.
That's the case, right? Because that's good, that's what we want. But now, there's evidence in the conversation. And the thing is very important. And the truth is, this was, from page 3 of, what is it, 19, I think it's complexity. Not only what you have agreed to as council members, but a lot of it is, you know, showing up with the team. So there's a lot of discussions about of your commitment to the health. And then we also need to get into the discussion around the tampering of the government. So, pieces, the behaviors, how we treat one another, how we treat one another. What we're supposed to do when we're engaged in those variables, those are all the sounds. Right? That's why we have our commitment slides here, so that we can have these discussions. We can have that before it, decisions to make. And, you know, I really have that this part of the discussion, it's not going to be the ask themselves again. We're going to be writers, we're going to sit on the council and serve my activities, but right now, all the findings are showing there is a case of the fraud, any intentional malfeasance, any of that. So that's why I'm involved in these. I would like to start with you. You guys come together. You know, I know that the online behavior in particular really is key. Those are the behaviors of discussion. There is concern on privacy, so the tamper with and the needed.
I don't know what you're talking, what.
I never said
me
that.
out by
I never
name.
said that.
We're gonna have a discussion.
Yep.
If you're gonna attack me by name, you're gonna have to tell me why I'm being attacked.
We're not gonna have that.
Because I've been attacked on here before. I have been bullied on here before.
We're not attacking.
Yeah. Change. I've been, let's have a conversation then. Let's have it. I have been attacked, sitting up here trying, volunteering my time after working full time.
Because
Come up here, I
agree
have
with
been,
you is not an attack.
I'm not, that's not what I'm talking about.
You and I had different.
I'm not, of course, I'm
Okay.
not talking about being disagreed.
Okay.
Now I'm being called out by name. So yeah, we're gonna go through every single bit of that.
Let me jump in here right now. If we're gonna have a discussion about anything legal, we'll do it in closed. And that includes tampering with government. That discussion's gonna go down.
Yeah, let's go on.
Tamper, what did you mean by that? What government records are you talking about now that you've called me out in front of the city?
I am acting on council advising that.
You said it, you brought it out in front of the whole city, now we need to know what to do.
She mentioned our name.
Yeah.
We're not, if we wanna go into closed session right now.
Then you should probably apologize. What slides are you talking about and why does she have them and the city doesn't? He wants to know what she's talking about.
He has everything, everybody else.
What slides are you talking about?
The slides that the mayor prepared and presented to Carissa are simply screenshots of the statements that have been made and the emails that have been sent by the council members.
She researched it.
My research was coming here to
And now it's being made worse.
they're talking about things so that we can move forward.
We're not moving forward now. Now we're gonna go backwards so I can figure out why you just called us out. Now we're going back.
Well, I'm gonna do this right now.
You said it. Let's bring out something that happened to me when I was sitting here.
If you want to do it in public, that's your choice, but I think if you want to take it into your session.
If you want to take it into closed session so I can find out what's being talked about, what does this mean, then let's do it. Because we're like starting a war at this point. This isn't healing. You're healing nothing. You're making it worse. So why don't we talk about when we were back there for 2 hours okay?
Mayor?
Cindy Poe could have said anything to me she wanted to in that 2 hours. We come out here, his entire family is recording me right in my face with big iPads and cell phones, son, wife, all of them, right? My husband didn't get a chance to come up here. The city wasn't here. Nobody knows this is happening. I get out here and get attacked. She throws her purse, hits me in the leg, and says, why did you go in the dollar store and tell people that I'm having an affair and this and that? And I said, what are you talking about? We were supposed to be discussing him. She comes out here on his advice after she was with me for 2.5 hours, could have said anything to me.
Mayor?
Out here and attacked me.
This is, Julie,
It's an interpretation of
It's-
events.
Julie, the executive session that you were talking
I've
about,
been bullied over and over again, and now I'm being bullied again.
No, you're not.
Let's go to the executive session.
you're 7:50.
Sorry, guys. We'll be back here.
Maybe.
Again, if there's any more, you want to speak.
You can back up. Thank you for waiting. Oh darn. On the ground. Ooh, that's good for it. It is, isn't it? You know, they work better when you do that, right?
It was very exciting to cover the. Can you hear me?
Can you hear me now? Yeah? Can you hear me, Salvador? Can you hear me? Okay. Everyone should be able to hear now.
Okay, well, listen, just got to educate a little. Being an engineer, and I've been super educated on this very point. That's why I don't do either, but. Yeah, I was kind of wondering if that was the case. We're just not grasping what that term meant. Well, I turn my iPad upside down. There we go. Upside down and sideways. I know I can watch right now. Oh, I'm sorry. Did I say that out loud?
Yeah.
I like everything.
All right, appreciate, you guys hanging here while we stepped out for a few minutes. We will call this, work session back into order at 8:12. Maybe I'll start too early. Start at 8:12. And what I'd like to do, I'd like to start, I want to apologize. I did tell Julie to pipe down at the heat of the moment. I apologize for that. I was trying to pull it back together. We were all spinning out of control. Going back into the executive session, I think was helpful so that we could let loose on each other and kind of figure where we need to be. And I think, so I do. I want to apologize for telling her to pipe down.
No problem.
Sorry.
I am
just
sorry
trying to
too.
bring it back together. Okay, anybody else have something to add? Before we get started?
Yeah, I just want to make certain that the record reflects, we went into executive session to talk about certain issues surrounding the Open Meetings Act, and Public Information Act. It wasn't, go back there and apologize. We were back there talking about legal issues related to what was coming up in this discussion.
Right. Yeah, no, I just.
Too late now.
I felt that I need to apologize too. I did kind of, I got a little heated.
It's all good.
So put you back in.
I know where you're coming from.
Okay. All right, so,
Mayor, I pulled back up the slide, so we can get on this particular topic and really, diving into, the line, council must bear initial responsibility for the integrity of the government. And then there's items within that the mayor would like to make sure that we're talking through, as well, and I think we're gonna join facilitate this particular part of it, is now, okay. So the council is responsible for its own development, both as a body and as an individual, its responsibilities, its own discipline, and its own support. So I think, in this scenario, would you like to dive into each line?
well, what I'd like to do is just discuss each of the, comes out of the new Fairview procedures and decorum policy. That's part of the introduction and summary. How this little pamphlet or booklet starts, the document, and just talk, what does that mean? Responsibility for its own development, both as a body and an individual, responsible for its own discipline, its own performance. So I think, again, I want everybody to add to the discussion, but I think what that says is we need to take responsibility for, and we'll be talking about some of the other things that follow below that are important things that we need to take responsibility for. But if we're posting things that are not possibly factual, or received it from somebody else, we don't know the information firsthand, or saying things that are derogatory to staff, or those types of things, that's part of taking responsibility for our behavior and for our discipline and our performance as council members. So I would like, again, one of the things I want to do is to help our council come together so that we work together. It's okay we disagree. I like to disagree, actually, but I want to be able to make sure that we can discuss, and when we do step outside that's through here, that we understand we have a responsibility to be kind to staff, to citizens, that we're putting out only factual information, etc. Any comments?
Other thing I'd add, not so much to that, but we're talking about our own development. I feel it's my responsibility to read and study everything that's on this agenda. I spent all weekend studying and reading, trying to make sure that I know everything there is to know about what we're going to discuss that's available. That's just part of my personal belief of my development as a council member. I took this job, well-paying job, and I think I need to put out the effort to.
We pay you too much.
I know.
I can tell you.
To read in it, and then kind of somebody sends me a question or a note, I do my best to go out and research that to try to figure out something.
I can attest to that. I called you once as a private citizen and you were very informative and I appreciate that, John.
Right down to, it was, people talking about dissolving the city, so I spent probably 4 days reading laws from the 80s to now to dissolve the city. And boy, have y'all got something to really think about there.
Yeah, there's a lot of information that goes with that that's not being
Yes.
disseminated, so.
That's
So I think we all have a responsibility. Y'all picked me out of a number of people in the audience to come up here, and I hope because you respect my opinion, and I spent a lot of effort getting into where we were at, which was a very difficult place in the city's history, to say the least. And I do have a bias towards New Fairview. I really think that New Fairview is positive for everybody. And I want to get back to that point because we can't do this by ourselves. If there's not a New Fairview, we're all in trouble. If there is a New Fairview, we need to be constructive and part of that solution, whatever that entails and however that does. And y'all picked me and put me in this slot, and I prayed very hard about that because this is not where I wanted to be. But needless to say, New Fairview is important to all of us. We all know Fort Worth is coming. We're going to get hit by the wave. I guarantee you, if we were all doing this as individuals, in 10 years, we would be overcome with Lord knows what, and none of our wells would have any water in them because everybody's going to stick a straw in the ground. But with New Fairview here, we at least have a say and the might to do something about it as individuals and as a group. So I think it's important, as difficult as this is, and again, Julie, I respect your opinion and I respect your differing opinion, and I told you that earlier, and I want that. And Steve, the same way with you. I respect your differing opinion. But at the same time, we will have cross discussions over that, but that's good. So as a group, this is difficult, but this is what I tried to do the very first meeting I came in here, is to have a very difficult conversation. And thank you for even trying, but we got a little sideways on this. My point being, and let me finish with this, my point being is that we have to come to a solution. We have to find a place that we can all disagree and be good with that. And people out there can disagree, and that's great. But I appreciate what you're trying to do here. I apologize to the audience and to those online that it did get a little sideways, but that's what happens sometimes. But we all have to come back as adults and say, you know, I'm sorry, but I'm glad you have your opinion. So.
And I want to second you on that. I absolutely agree that diversity of ideas is one of the most important things that the council can have. And everybody bringing their own conversation and their own point to the table. That's the first thing I said to Julie when she and I talked about it, is a diversity of ideas is fantastic. We may not agree on everything, but you bring a perspective and a concept to the council that adds value to the city overall. Where it becomes an issue is when people begin to have opinions on facts. A fact is a fact. There is no opinion about a fact. It is either true or it is false. And the people that are sitting around this table have to be able to acknowledge and say, yes, this is a fact, and come to terms with it, and not continue to espouse an opinion about the fact.
I agree with what you said. We have different personalities, we have different backgrounds, we have different life experiences, mixed with different people. We all bring something different to the table. There can't be anything more positive than having a group of people who can bring something different to a discussion. And then you need to look at all those different points of view. Unfortunately, sometimes what does happen is that people feel like if they're getting attacked or they go in defensive mode or for whatever reason, and it starts to get heated, sad, flurry, lines start getting crossed, and that's unfortunate for a city that we're trying to help. So I think that moving forward, if we can disagree, like him and I do all the time, and still be friends and give each other chocolate.
Well, I don't know
then we'll
about
come
friends,
together,
but we can sit next to each other.
council friends,
Yes, we
then
can
we
sit
can
next to
come
each other.
together and work for the city and trying to keep what's something that Steve says all the time too, that I always try to keep in mind is that we're not here for the city employees, for the mayor, no offense, or even for each other. We took on this responsibility because citizens trusted us to be their mouthpiece, to listen to what they have to say. And whether we agree with the citizens or we don't, bring that to the table. You know, do we want to raise taxes? Do I want water? Do I want this? Yeah, I really do, but guess what? You know, the majority of the people that we're sitting here for don't want to, for whatever reason, accept that and raise taxes. So we have to backtrack. Okay, I didn't want to do this, or I didn't want to do this, but guess what? I just heard 200 people and they don't. So I'm not here for me, we're here for them. So we have to also take what they want into consideration, whether we agree or not, or else step down.
Glenn, one more thing. I also think it's our responsibility to educate the citizens. But sometimes and I hate to say this, because I deal with my mom all the time because I live next door, so I get an earful every time the newspaper comes out or whatever. Yeah.
Well, you get it hard too,
Yeah.
don't you, John?
So, just because and I say this loosely, because just because they want something, maybe they don't understand what they want or what they don't want. And I explain that with my mom all the time. I'm not trying to say that, you know, they don't have a clue or anything like that. They just not, they don't know the whole picture sometimes. And I said, I have to go up there with my mom all the time because I explained to her. And it can't be the city, it could be. And I worked with her yesterday to fix her air conditioner. She said she didn't need her air conditioner fixed because it was November.
Yeah.
But, you know,
Yeah, you do. John, that's an excellent point. As much as to listen to what they say, I think they have to trust us to be educated enough to make a good decision. I hear all the time about raising taxes, but in 10 years, if Fort Worth waves over us, I'm not going to have any water. I got 2 holes in the ground that ain't going to be worth nothing in 10 years if we don't do something to control that. So I would hope as citizens, y'all would have a little faith in us to be educated, to make an educated, I hate to use the word guess, but an educated opinion. And then if it differs from y'all, then you come ask. Don't just start saying, well, and Steve, I'm going to use one of your simple statements here that we're drinking the Kool-Aid. So we're not I never drank Kool-Aid in my life. That's a lie. I grew up drinking Kool-Aid. Great Kool-Aid to be exact. But being educated is not drinking the Kool-Aid. And I'll differ with you on that, Steve, and I appreciate the thought, but I think that's a very harsh way of saying that we're making an educated decision that you disagree with.
No, sir, not for me.
you know, we just gotta make one.
Professional, and atmosphere,
just covered that. I was gonna say, I think we just did that, didn't we?
Mayor.
And setback. What does this mean? To foster good communication between residents and council. I'm gonna be bold and say that some of the communication I've seen on Facebook does not do that. In fact, it separates. It widens the gap between the city and the citizens.
Very divisive.
It's very divisive, yeah, and divisive. So I think that as council members, we need to focus on that word endeavor, and we need to do our very best not to communicate things that are going to cause division between the city and the citizens of the city. We need to be truthful in the things that are out there, or if we put anything out there. We obviously want to be open, transparent, so that the citizens know what's going on. But as we speak as a council, I think we need to not speak against each other, but speak in a common voice. Doesn't mean we have to agree on anything, but we need to speak in a appropriate way so that the residents, the communication between the residents and the council is clear and support the position that the council has decided.
And disagreeing is not bad by any means,
No,
but as long as you can support it,
Right.
then that communication is great. So the endeavor part, I think you're right.
I think it's good to do that. Online. Remember, and those.
That's true.
They're usually engaged because you're passionate. Here, okay. But what happens is pieces of that communication is that, people are going to be talking about Facebook, and the division that happens among many social concepts versus the reality, data and time. It's a social perspective, right? So remember that we didn't put out there, bear that responsibility for happening. Then that's the piece that they focus on. So I think that was a really good one to really make sure that it's effective and figure out.
And as we learned, it's all public records. It's public record.
It's all public record.
Right.
Yeah.
Government record. Government, yeah.
One other thought to that, sometimes it's not just the words that we, it's the little I agree, parts, or the hands up, or the fact, or whatever.
That give me that, yeah.
Those are all action words, or action figures, I guess. And they send a message. It may not be in words, but it sends a message that you agree wholeheartedly with whatever was said. Even if it wasn't very much.
And I think, the section, I was this with a particular lyric who said, hey, I'm engaging, letting you know that I appreciate this information. It was a lesson a lot. Well, the other side of it is that, hey, you are maybe a few more requirements, all about that stuff. And I don't know what, where you guys are on your policies or what kind of, people want to get to as you go into the next phase of what we're going to and but maybe putting some sort of more policy, this is something that you could put, very strict guidelines. So that you don't find yourself in some sort of restriction.
Nope. I'm keeping my mouth shut very hard.
Well, I don't do anything on social media. That's why I don't do anything. If you look at my social media, hopefully that, all I do is chant. That's your brain. About all I got.
So I like the last three about friendly and courteous in our appearance and in our manner. And we all know that's difficult to do, especially on social media, and those things come across always wrong. But, and at the end of the day, we got to stop and say, hey, do I own up to my actions and to what I just did? And I'll be the first to say, yeah, y'all heard my sordid past, and I have no problem being transparent about my history or what God allowed me to walk through. So I think it's just important that we do that as a council. And again, I said it earlier, you said it, Julie, Steve, you say it all the time, we're serving these people out here. But at the same time, there has to be a trust. And we all need to own up to that. Just because I disagree with them or I disagree with you, am I still holding that trust in my heart? And so that ends the last statement. If anybody else wants to comment there, I'll check.
That works. Okay, I feel like I agree with you that sometimes things can get said, you're in the comfort of your own home, you're going through stuff, you're at work, whatever. Maybe this doesn't come across the way you meant it to come. So it's probably wise to not just there.
And it's that way,
I agree.
it's that way at work, even on your own email,
You're
at
right.
work. People
Absolutely.
take your emails wrong all the
Right.
time, and
And
you
they
don't.
can't see your facial
Yes,
expression,
that's true.
they can't see that you're joking, they can't see, whatever the case may be. So it's probably best just to mumble it. Keep your fingers in the tight. And I think, one thing too is, it's not.
There.
Can we just?
I'm gonna get him a tape mic and we'll just put it over to.
Do a little headset. That would actually work very good.
I think for the most part, we do. You have occasions that we're not. There have been some times though that we have been far less than kind of to members of the staff, and to members of the council. I mean, they told Mayor to go fly kite more once out there. And they told Ben to go fly kite a few times, get off and get and we've had council members that agree with that. That's just wrong. It's sad that we would do that. I'm not taking it, saying you don't have your First Amendment right, because you definitely have the First Amendment right, and I believe the First Amendment right, and most of you know a lot. So I'm not saying that, but I'm saying as council members, we have a responsibility to at least be kind to the people. Of not to egg it on to the park.
Can I?
Yeah.
Particularly, can we walk this forward where it's getting kind of late, we're not even through.
Well, how can we?
Maybe y'all are on a different, social media than I am. It looks like to me, everything I see, it looks like 90% of the citizens that comment disagree with the way, the direction the city's going. You said a while ago, we've had taxes for a year and a half. No, sir, we've had taxes for a year and 10 months. This is October. Taxes
Okay.
started in January,
Right.
okay? And we haven't paid one dadgum road. Somebody was on there today saying the road's all tore up. And they can't even get in and out of their own driveway. So how can we ask them to trust us when we don't, not me, I didn't pass the dadgum tax.
Nope.
And
I'm not the one that has the bonds, I voted against that. But we've taken all this money from citizens and haven't done one dadgum thing to fix their roads.
So Steve, fixing the roads. How are you going to fix the roads?
And I ran against taxes.
Exactly. So how are you going to fix the roads?
And I said this,
Contributions from who?
I said this many times. I have a road, a private road that goes from the county road 2,500 feet to my house. I don't go out and ask the city to fix that. The same thing, there's a subdivision over off of 4421 Coyote Ridge. Those people have worked roads in Wise County. If every one of those people in that subdivision would contribute $50 or $100, that would do a hell of a lot of road. And the same thing for any subdivision, any subdivision.
So for everybody up in the Chisholm Trails, Branding Iron, all them, you have around 350 homes. So if everybody contributed $100, you're going to have around $35,000.
Yep, do a lot of road repair.
Will not do a lot of road repair.
Well, those roads are 40-something years old, and you can't repair those roads. They would
So-
be in the-
So the money that we're spending right now, to fix that that neighborhood is about $4.2 million, and that's not fixing all the roads. It's actually $4.6 million when you take in and put in all the engineering costs and everything else that go along with it. The assessment on those homes up there would be thousands of dollars for them to do it, way more than what they're paying for property taxes currently. So it's not as simple as saying, let's go ahead and just have everybody write a check for $50 and come up with it. It's going to be another $4 or $5 million to fix the streets across the whole area appropriately.
So that's $13,000 a hole, basically.
Yeah.
Nothing's been done. Nothing's been done.
Steve, we
We
spent
have a
almost
motion, we have an item.
$500,000 fixing the drainage. The things that you're talking about is where we had to replace culverts. There was a lot of rain that came this last week. Some of those areas where the culverts were replaced have had some the gravel wash through. They were out there today. They replaced and fixed all those issues that are happening as they occur. There's going to be problems as you go through and get the roads fixed. They're starting to do the drainage work on Montana Court this week. We've completed all the drainage work for the entire neighborhood upon Hilltop, Chisholm Trails, and Branding Iron. So the progress is being made. The city is spending the dollars. And in fact, we've spent more money than we brought in the first year of taxes currently right now. Within 2 months, we'll have spent more money than the city has brought in property taxes in its history. So to say that nothing's happened and that we're not making progress is disingenuous.
I didn't say.
You said nothing's been done to fix the roads.
I said, one road has been paved. Not one
said
road
fixed.
has been paved.
That's it.
Fixed?
You said
Paved,
fixed.
paved.
Okay.
You go out and throw,
So-
hot mix or cold mix in a pothole, that's not a fix.
Right. And that's what $500 a person would do. It would be throwing hot mix in a hole, which is not fixing.
Well, sort of like the way I thought it.
Yeah. But you asked for his opinion.
This is
So
a
Steve
big
asked
hole.
it, so I was
Not
kind of
one
letting,
road has been paved.
Steve had that brought it up, so I kind of let the conversation go.
Okay.
We need to get back on track. So,
But Mayor, this goes directly to this thing right here. Council will seek to improve the quality and image of public service.
right.
Steve is portraying to the community right now that we are ineffective, that we're inefficient, that we're taking their dollars and we're doing nothing.
We're slothful.
And that is a completely inaccurate portrayal.
Put it out, saying that 90% of the people, the common, I see social media say, we're not doing this.
So you don't agree with that assessment?
Yes, I do agree with it.
So you're out there saying we're not spending money, we're not efficient, we're not being effective. So, the
I
city,
never said we weren't spending money. We're dead going through spending money.
you just said we have not spent a single penny out there to fix roads.
Paving roads.
So paving roads.
Pave one road.
Paving roads without fixing drainage is a waste of money. So you want us to go waste money?
You literally can put down a lot of asphalt without any water drainage, and 5 years later, it'll be gone.
Well, there's no sense in going there because we've talked about it over and over.
we could do chip and seal, a whole bunch of chip and seal for what?
Well, so Julie, do you think that it
So
does?
that, right.
Okay, one way to move forward though is you can't have the city administrator attacking people. This is not helpful. This
What's
doesn't
he
look
attacking?
good. If he said, if he was talking about what the citizens say, I don't know if you guys are on all the groups, but.
That's how
if
the
you just- Right.
Right.
So now you're trying to pin it to say, you. If you look at what some of the citizens tell us, private messages, text us, whatever. Somebody just private messaged me this morning, I just popped my tire on the road and and so what he's trying to bring out, and we all have different personalities, is the citizens are getting frustrated. So if you want to make something transparent and you want to work with the citizens and you have all these numbers flying around, tell them, we spent this much, this is what's being fixed, they're all asking. And
We
they're
did that
asking
2
us.
meetings ago,
So we have that.
Out here, I'm talking about,
somewhere online.
they won't come up and talk,
Okay.
they won't sign up to speak to
Okay.
us and ask us questions in person or online. or whatever. Can we make it more, is there a way to make it more transparent and answer questions about what they need to do on the road?
That's
Then we
an
don't have
excellent
to
point.
argue
That's
up
part
there.
of the bigger picture.
Thank you.
You took it back to where it needed to be.
Yes, that is, we send out an update.
It's been a little while because,
Don't
been
give
tied up.
excuses, let's just say.
don't give excuses. Julie, for the last
Doesn't
8
matter
weeks,
why it's
staff
different.
time
No, and
has
we
been
don't have a city
consumed.
secretary.
No,
We
no,
all
no,
know
no.
that, but now we're
Staff
gonna
time has been
ask for all that
consumed
again,
by
and
you.
we're talking about moving forward. So let's move forward. Can we
You're,
now go
you're
forward?
accusing, you're
Exactly.
accusing Judith.
Exactly. He didn't.
That's not your-
Whoa. What did he accuse you of?
Steve,
So
Steve,
that's my fault that we can't, because all of this.
Well, he did not say
Okay, finish
anything.
what you were saying.
He just did. 80% of the time is spent on Julie. He said that.
Did you say that?
I said a lot of the time, yeah. A lot of my time over the last 8 weeks has been in direct response
Yell at me, Steve,
to
okay? This is part of this
the
conversation.
social media posts and the distribution of inaccurate information.
Don't look at me when you say that.
You
You
just
had a
asked the
city,
question.
you had a city
All right.
secretary. You want to go back in executive session and bring it up again? I'm done being attacked by you. I don't want to be bullied and I don't want to be attacked.
So let me ask you a
anymore.
question here. When you made your statement about social media, which is what your perception, and man, we're good with that. So then goes into giving facts. You perceive that as being
That's
attacked.
his opinion.
No.
I have a right to my opinion. He has a right to
Right,
his
right.
opinion.
And that's what I want to try to
And
get to
what
here.
he sees as a fact may not be what I see as a fact.
All right. See, no, that's good.
I'm not saying, he's wrong, and I'm not wrong, but my opinion is just, if I think it's the truth to me.
To you, I understand. It's your opinion, but,
That's right.
but he's handing facts and you perceive it as being attacked. What I want to try to get past what she's trying to get us past, I don't want the exchange of information to be an attack. And I understand you're perceiving it that way. So how do we get past that?
Don't use the excuse that we've been busy to not let the citizens into the road. That's it. It doesn't matter. What else? There's a lot of people in this office that can get online.
Okay, we will get an update. We
Thank
talked
you.
about an update, and talked about getting information to the citizens. And I've been saying this for months now. I don't get the agenda. I still have not got an agenda.
Steve, you do. And I help you set up your,
No.
Yeah.
I should have brought my, I don't have the agenda.
your
I
iPad.
sent out a post Friday, get it, that said, does anybody have the agenda, because I don't have.
I can pull it up on here and I can show you that you got it.
Because you said it doesn't mean I got it, then.
Steve, all you have to do is stop by City Hall. We've got people here that can help you with your iPad. It took you, what,
Did you get
8?
the agenda? Yeah.
It took you 8 months?
Get the agenda? Why, if y'all get it, why?
You got the agenda on Friday.
Y'all get it.
Steve, okay, and so here's my concern with that whole thing is you're missing something somewhere. Okay, so your whatever lack of information or connectivity, it is not directly his fault and it's not our fault. You need to reach
I came
out.
up here and Benny and I worked on my computer.
The Atlassian,
And now,
yeah.
now I have Gmail, and I got, like today at 3 something, I
3:29.
got the whatever.
Packet.
Never got, I got the packet. Okay. I never got an agenda, not Friday, Saturday, not Sunday.
So you are getting your.
John, did you get the packet of the agenda on Friday?
Whatever.
Did you get the agenda on Friday?
Whatever you want. You're
So,
getting that email.
There's a distribution group that's set up. It has your personal email, it has your city email, and everybody else is getting it except for you. So if you want to come up to City Hall and let us try and do it for you, that's great. I've invited you multiple times. If it's not working, let's continue working on it.
So let's not throw aggressive accusations at any of us because something's not working correctly. And I don't want you to feel attacked. And I,
Oh, no, and I don't, I'm just saying that I'm not getting the agenda, and I'll bring my laptop, and Larry can tell you, I've never erased anything, not in 10 years on social media, not 5 years of text, I've never erased anything. Okay. I don't erase it.
that's cool.
If I said it, it's somewhere.
It's somewhere.
I never erased it.
That's cool.
I mean, everything that, since day one, I got my cell phone, I gave it to him.
Okay, that's actually
So if I don't have it, it's not there.
It's not there. Okay. So,
So again, so citizens are asking if we can let them know the update on the roads. Some people are posting, nothing's been done on Latham for 4 years. It's getting out of hand, mailbox late, or the mail delivery, the school buses, there's some places they can't reach. So I think some of the citizens thought some of
Yeah,
that.
we'll get an update out.
Forward.
We'll get an update out.
let's,
So, but the other thing about this is we did put an update out, and we can read the specific response that we received from the city councilwoman if you'd like. She made fun of it and said, "Oh yeah, look at the rich people getting the help, but not us." I'm not attacking, Julie.
You are doing it again. What is she talking about? Not how you treat people.
Julie, have you acknowledged that what you have done?
have you acknowledged what you posted?
Have you acknowledged
Good point.
Have you acknowledged?
What you
This is what we're
posted.
here to talk about at 9 o'clock on a weeknight.
Have you acknowledged your part in the situation where the city
Is
is
that
right
what I'm
now?
here to do right now, or? are we
I'm
here
just,
to discuss
I'm asking the question.
the
If
agenda?
you don't want to answer it, just say you don't want to answer it.
What situation on, what are you talking about?
We're about $60,000 deep into an audit and additional legal fees, the Texas Rangers investigation,
Why are we doing?
all of those things.
She didn't do that.
Well, I've got a text message that says otherwise. So what I'm saying though is,
What up? The road?
Well, I heard it.
So, no, see, and again, we gotta change that perception. Did I do something that he is asking me about? Did you do something he's asking me about? All you gotta say is yes or no. Did I make those
I
posts?
have no idea.
Well, okay then, so let's walk past that.
I
Let's
have,
just walk past.
did I post something 6 months ago?
6 months ago.
Dinner?
We need to
Well,
take care of the
I don't know.
What we need.
I would say.
Hmm?
If I could respectfully say, you could have those respectful conversations.
Unfortunately, because this body cannot have those conversations behind a closed door, it has to be in the public.
It has to be.
And so these issues have to be resolved out here. Now, we did try and set up a couple meetings where we could sit down with a couple of the council members and the mayor and let them come in and ask the questions. Unfortunately, they canceled the meeting and they refused to show up. So when you try to take this and handle it in a closed area and you try and bring it to the conclusion, if they're not going to show up, then how do you operate in good faith? They refused to acknowledge that there was anything that was done that was inappropriate or wrong. They refused to show up to have a conversation about the issues and actually drill down into it and say what's going to happen. And they continue to spread false information.
Who's they and who refused what?
Julie, did you-
One finger point.
I don't know what you're
gonna do
talking
that.
about. I don't know what you're talking about. Can you explain what he's talking about?
I
Scott,
can.
Scott, you set up these meetings.
So I spent 2 weeks, I So all of the, when it first started, he invited everybody down to come see all this information that was being spread online. And so some of the council members went and other ones didn't. And so that's what he's referring to.
I don't know if this is entire executive stuff, is when I asked him to not do something that he did anyway. And he said, come down here and let me see
Scott,
some
you-
of the paperwork. And I said, it's 11 o'clock at night. My husband's really not going to want me to come down to City Hall right now. That's the only time I refused anything.
Okay.
Scott, you set up the appointments. Did she cancel on you? For the meetings for you and I and her to sit down and talk?
Yes. So we had 3 meetings set up and I have to say this, Julie, I apologize if you feel attacked. No, please don't feel
tell
attacked.
me,
But you canceled all 3 of them.
I don't remember 3 meetings.
So
I
we,
remember one, and when I had the heart.
one got postponed
Right,
and to the
right.
second one, and the second one
You're
got
right.
postponed to the
You're
third
right.
one.
The third one I did cancel. You
Yeah,
are 100%
and then you
right.
said, hey, we're gonna be at the meeting.
Yeah,
You
yeah,
need
I
to-"
did say
Okay.
that.
So what we're seeking here is ownership of what we did.
I did that.
Okay,
I-
that's great.
Should I write it down and sign it?
No,
Okay.
thank you.
So,
I'm good with that. So,
Scott, I think we are headed- I think it's that- Are we committed to quality of life for the individuals? Are we? I mean, are we? If we are, then we're gonna try and follow the rules and procedures and rules so that we don't.
I've always been committed. Did it.
citizens.
Okay.
Well, we're
now
gonna
we
be
want,
committed to the
now
rules.
what we're asking extra,
We're
we're asking a commitment to us as a body. So you're absolutely right, Steve.
You know, your team has been about passing other council for United. Okay. Good.
You were very open to that. You were very positive where you started and said, if you were asking, sure. And so that's what I'm asking, a commitment here. That's what we're all asking, is a commitment from all of us towards each other.
I don't want to attack anybody, but if you say something that I think is not true, not right, then
Okay.
I'm going to address it, but I'm not going to attack you.
Please. And that's all I'm asking.
So can we expand that to not just the council, but to residents and to staff?
Who is attacking the rest?
Again, you don't want me to point fingers or provide examples, but there's been very many times in here where there have been people sitting around this podium where they have attacked residents when they come up to present or people that are presenting something to the council.
Right the line.
I don't see that anybody was attacked.
I would never, if somebody takes the time to come up here and speak, I'm not going to, even if I agree with him, I'm not going to do it. I wouldn't.
Yeah. And then, again, so that's that. Can we agree that we will not attack staff?
I don't remember ever.
Yes,
attacking
if you'll make the same commitment to not attack anybody else.
So, again, if you tell me,
And this is perception.
and this is the situation. So explain to me what is an attack versus the providing of information and facts. So you're perceiving me making a correction of events, terms, dollar amount, situations as an attack. That's not an attack. That's a clarification of the facts. An attack is claiming that one of our employees is sitting at City Hall snorting coke. That's an attack.
Looks like.
No, that is an attack, Steve. That's an attack.
So if we can define that as an attack, then let's say we don't do that. And if we can say if an individual is presenting factual information, then that's not an attack. I'm cool with that as a definition of an attack. If you want to have a conversation about the issues, if you ever want to have a conversation about,
I would agree that, yeah.
So I think part of that, an important part of that is that we need to accept and knowledge the things that we've done. I mean, the fact that we did it, we need to step up to the plate. That goes with anything we post on Facebook. We put something out there, it turns out to be not true. We probably ought to come in and apologize to the public and say, you know what, I got something, I was misinformed, I'm sorry, I screwed up, and, so we can move forward. I think honesty is key here. If we want to generate trust, we've got to be honest and open with each other and.
So,
Moving
moving forward, it's gonna have to be moving forward, because, I feel like a lot of people sitting in this room attacked our former city secretary. I feel like. I said moving forward, all right? Okay. I feel like you did.
Okay.
I'm not saying you, I'm saying. No, right. Those people, I felt like that she was attacked. And you stated that
yes,
correctly.
I'll agree not to attack, anybody.
And you stated that correctly. Yeah, I'll back that up. I felt. Yeah, and that's his feeling, and I'm good with that, so we don't need to hash all that up.
Yeah.
Scott, we have a commitment to you to move forward.
Yeah.
Really?
Absolutely.
Okay, I can get it.
Well, I'm gonna roll my eyes and I know I do that. now.
John, you're over there just killing us, you know that?
I don't say a lot, but I roll my eyes and I want to turn around and beat my head against the wall.
Sometimes rolling your eyes like when you're.
It is, it's just as bad as.
Those icons we put out there.
It is.
thumbs up,
I know.
so it can be damaged.
So I'm gonna make one final statement, and I'm sorry if I'm jumping ahead of you, cutting you off here, but to anybody and to what we stated over here a second ago is we need to be working on city business. I really think what we did this evening is working on city business. If we can't agree to come together, then we're never gonna get a work on city business. And I'll shut up right there.
I think, most of them have already been taken care of in, record.
The only,
We think I'm missing.
we talked about this coming back to the council for action in the upcoming meeting and an executive session, if we can resolve it, through,
Oh. Yeah, one of the things, in fact, we talked a little bit about it, if, I came out here and kind of started it, offered an apology because I was really needed to Julie and tell her to fight down, everybody was kind of talking over everybody and just trying to do it back in and apologize to you because that's not who I am. But I think, some things that's been done, it's said, on social media, that I think would be good to have a sincere apology. Things that have been said that shouldn't have been said. Cause of a division between the council and the city.
Thank you very much.
So with that, if anybody wants to speak?
I don't know, guys,
Have anything to follow?
I would like to reflect on that and maybe come up with stuff. But I'm,
That's good.
being part of the spot, and I think that I wanted to think different like that.
That's a good answer.
I think that I want to reflect on the stuff over the last few months, reflect on myself and some things that have happened, and I'd like to take some time to think about that.
Okay, so at our next council meeting.
I will not. Everybody knows I'm going on vacation.
Yay.
So,
He's going on
It's
vacation.
the anniversary.
That's right.
Congratulations.
Thank you.
so, the next time that we're all together, there'll be a different discussion.
We have to have enough.
we have two, people that are already gonna be absent. Let's go ahead and move it to the following, the November 15th. Yeah.
So there'll be no council meeting on the first.
Well, there'll be a council meeting on the 1st if we have a quorum, but if we, to discuss these things, let's try and keep a quorum and keep a large group of us here.
Yeah, I think I'll be here. Unless something happens.
Again, if we don't own up to the things that we've done,
If you're talking about reposting stuff, I already told people 2 weeks ago I shouldn't have done it. So I apologize for reposting things. Is that what we're doing?
Kind of,
Okay.
that's kind
Well,
of the
then-
things we're looking at here.
Then we don't have to put it on the agenda. There you go. I am sorry for reposting stuff on Facebook.
Are you? The things that were said, I think also there would need to go a little deeper in the things that were.
Oh, so you guys have all talked about this. so you need to go- Is there a list?
No,
You're all.
right, so we've had many of executive sessions, I know what's been posted. You were kind enough to share some of it with me. So I think that's the direction the council,
So let's see. Yeah, I think I'm ready to think about this because I don't know other than saying, I shouldn't have reposted stuff. But, you know.
okay.
And I don't know if I'll know that until we.
Well, and if you don't have any feeling that you need to apologize for the specific things you said, then don't. And that says a lot right there.
I don't know. I guess I have to think about it
Okay. So,
because I don't even remember.
and that's a fair answer to this point. Not to put anybody on the spot, but I really believe the direction, and Harvey, I appreciate your comment. I know you have, and Harvey, I appreciate your comment too. But, well, okay, needless to say, so things have been said online, and I believe this is what. No, but I've seen them all,
Mayor,
but I've seen the conversation.
Okay, we're not allowing people online to speak during the working session.
All right. So I wasn't here, and I'll just make that comment, but I've seen most of the conversations, and I disagree with a lot of things that were said. And so that's my opinion. I would like to see a public apology to the citizens and to us.
From who, from all.
Anybody who made those comments, I don't know
So let's keep
specifically.
going around the table.
So I'll start the apology.
oh, Julie, absolutely. You need to write a written apology for the defamation and the claims that you made about criminal activities, being a con man, being in an affair with people at City Hall.
I never said anybody was having an affair.
I've got,
I want to see proof
that's
of
fine.
that.
And we can have all that. If you want to come in, you can come in and we
I
can
want
show
it
you all
now.
that. No,
Why? You're saying it now.
you know what? It's part of the official record of the presentation. If you want to see it, you can come get the presentation. You can have all of that.
You're telling the whole city that I said something that I did not say. and
I saw the conversation. I will back up what you just said.
Who did I say anything about having an affair?
Well, it's been said about multiple people and you,
No,
oh,
I
yes,
did not.
that's
You
fine.
said that the city administrator and a certain council person were going away together
What was that?
on a trip.
Oh, no, it's
Yeah.
very, very clear.
This
No,
is
that's
true.
not.
So I absolutely, oh, I can't say that.
It's fine.
we were gonna move forward.
We are moving forward and part of moving forward,
I said stuff I never said. Never said it. Sorry for
So-
something I never said.
so
I don't know how else you interpret that. I read it and that was instantly what I go, oh my God. you can't
That's
say
what
that.
you got from it. That's not what I meant.
Well, there's a
We
whole
just all-
city out there.
We just all said that we can say
Yeah,
stuff and you.
that's fine. We
interpret
can
it
talk
wrong.
about this offline because we
No,
don't
no,
need
no.
to.
I'm just saying.
No. Exactly. Never said that. So how can you, okay, and I agree with that, but being responsible for the way somebody takes something. Then I need to see it. I need to see it because I don't, never thought it, never, still don't think it. I think it's ridiculous. So. I need to see proof of that.
All right. So with that, I think we're pretty much done with the discussion. Thank you. Thank you. And I know that was hard, but we appreciate your expertise in facilitating and your willingness to help the council and help us. So thank you.
Again, we can't, people are gonna take things, they're gonna take things.
That's why you got to. All right, let's go on to something, we talked about training, I think we need to do as city council members. We did attend some, training, PML training, down in Houston,
What is it?
and, it was incredible. The amount of information you received, we're gonna just talk a little bit about it, and really understand it. Next year, we, hopefully everybody can, attend it. There's just an incredible advisory that comes from that to help us with. Couple of other things.
I was floored.
I didn't
I
know
was
we
like,
had-
going, really?
And several of the speakers, they spoke about different types of things at the conference, at that particular session. But it was just, it was so much. I mean,
Well, Scott, you talked about one where you went to that was talking about the 10 biggest challenges before a city or something, and you came out and you said, you know what, I was affirmed in the direction that we're taking. Talk about that a little bit.
So there was a lot of stuff that went on down in Houston. They had breakout conferences all day long. We generally hit one as often as possible. They had a huge convention center with all kinds of vendors for stuff for the city, which was really cool. So one of the things I did was the 10 things a small city needs to do in order to be prepared. And I sat through that and I was just absolutely tickled because the top 5 things that these experts in city-run municipalities, what word I'm looking for, but anyway, the top 5 things that they stated, we have been doing, if not we have done in the last 2 years. And so I was really tickled that the preparation that Joe Max and me and the original council made coming up to the very difficult decisions that we're all here now for was starting taxes. We have done the first 3 or 4 of those. And then we started taxes so that we can continue the rest of it. City management is one of the things, it's like number 6 on the list, as I recall. Right here. So anyway, city administration or city management was like the 6th thing on the list, and we're now at that step. And they basically said, if you can do these 10 things, then you will end up being a successful city. And so that was really cool. I thought that was an excellent breakout deal. We also went to different, so one of them I did was the risk pool. I also did broadband in Texas. So broadband in Texas is very informative about the situation and the one. Okay, so broadband was very knowledgeable in that the federal government has all kinds of money, especially in the COVID and the CARES Act, available for small cities. I didn't know any of this. And so there is actually a coalition of and I forgot what the name is, and I wrote it down, connectednation.org. So if anybody wants to go to connectednation.org, there's an organization that organizes all of the broadband use throughout the United States and the places that don't have it. So there was excellent
You
information
can
right
put
there.
in your address or some of whatever, and it will tell you all the providers, what kind of speeds they provide, and those types of things.
Well, even the organization of what they're trying to do to get more broadband in that area. So there was a number of breakout sessions that were really cool. I learned all kinds of information. The vendors were really neat too. I brought home a satchel, a stack of stuff this tall, of all the vendors that I saw, and I thought that was really neat.
Another thing I thought was kind of cool, they had the Camp 91 I thought it was fascinating the way they put that on. They actually had helicopters fly in and there, and they would teach these children, how to help the mom or dad if they got hurt, and a brother or sister or somebody else. And they show them, what type of things they could do and how to, look about.
So this is like a summer camp or something?
Yeah, little camp.
Huh.
And they would have a feedback helicopter fly in, and it was collaboration with all the different utilities and different
Services.
services in the
Yeah.
city.
Well, not just
I
the
didn't see
city.
that one.
And it was just awesome the way they brought the city together.
They brought in like the airvac place. They brought in the utility company. So they brought in basically all those different types of services that cities receive from a diverse background. So it was nonprofit organizations. It was, utility type places. It was the city services themselves. And, ultimately they take 15, 20 kids each summer, and they take them through this, and they come out of it understanding what it is the city provides, what the services are, how things work, and it's a pretty cool little
I see
program.
future firemen out there too.
Exactly.
The sign that we got on the front.
Yeah.
I didn't get a sit in that one. That was neat. So the sales tax sourcing, I kind of caught that one at the end of it. I was a little late on that one, but that was good information too. There's all kinds of money out there if we just have somebody sitting in that seat that knows these things are there and can go access that stuff.
Lots of grants. I mean, we got a grant to fix the roads on.
So we're waiting on the award, but we've been scored in the top 20, which is what the state's allocated funding for. And those COVID grants that you're talking about, we've received $60,000 last year that we've used for the volunteer fire department putting in equipment for related to PPE. We've received $191,000 from another grant that can be used for water infrastructure or broadband. So, we decided not to look at a tax increase this year, but now we have $190,000 that we could potentially put into the soft cost, the engineering, and potentially kick that decision down the road a ways. So next year we'll get another $190,000 from that same grant that was there previously. So there's money out there, and a lot of these dollars are coming to the table, and we're learning about is through these networks of people that we have that we're building through this as well. The other thing, and this is something that I talked to you and the mayor about, was the opportunities of being able to serve in the Texas Municipal League in some type of a leadership position. You get to gain significant resources through the network. You get access to the staff of the Texas Municipal League, and it brings value back to the city while you are adding value to the organization overall.
So one of the things that y'all know me just from sitting up here, I talked to 500 people just talked to everybody during, learned a lot of good information. It was really pretty neat. One of the things was at the closing luncheon, we talked, was it the mayor of Van Horn?
Yes, Mayor Van Horn.
The mayor of Van Horn was at our table, and we got to talking to her about the, what's his name?
Jeff Bezos, Blue Horizon or
Yeah.
Blue Sky or whatever.
Blue Horizon, whatever it was.
Yeah.
And the difficulties that they're facing because of that installation. So there was all kinds of information, we exchanged cards and all that stuff. So there's a lot of connectivity in a situation like that. Things that we could call on later if we needed to.
Mhm.
All right, I think we beat that horse.
Appreciate it, I think, the great guy. We, last thing was, just
So there's a couple things, this is in the packet, and honestly, you don't have to give me input or feedback tonight. We can go through it if you'd like, or we can kind of send this out and you can go through it and come back and give me some idea. But ultimately, we came up with an identity manual, a design guide for the new website, which includes looking at what the logo was versus what we could potentially have it be moving forward. It goes into and talks about the vision and mission that the council and the Planning and Zoning Commission worked on, which ultimately resulted in our strategy on a page, which basically says these are our four. That's it.
Okay, thank you.
These are the four strategic intents. Develop and educate local leadership, engage community members, elevate city services and amenities, maintain open spaces. So this is a group of 13, 14 people that have been coming together for a 4 or 5 month period to have these conversations. And this was not the city administrator facilitating or leading or directing this. This was them working with a third party and asking questions and asking, who do you want to be when you grow up? Where are you right now, and what do you want to keep from what we have today, and how do we want to move that into the future? And ultimately, they came up with a mission statement. They came up with a vision statement. They came up with these strategic intents. They came up with these activities that they're saying are important, and basically they aligned my activities and our budget to be successful in accomplishing these goals. And so this is what we're using as the tool to make sure that we're moving in the direction that the council would like to see us going forward. And then you can come down here and you can actually look and see what the strategic initiatives are, the activities that are currently ongoing or have taken place and are taking us getting closer to accomplishing these strategic intents. Collecting information from the citizens, the citizen satisfaction survey. We've been making appointments for the mayor to reach out to elected officials in surrounding communities, our state representatives, our congressional delegation, the Texas Rural Leadership Program, having them come in, work with the city council, working on website development. This thing about the 3-year election cycle. This is something that the city council and the Planning and Zoning Commission have been talking about for 6 to 8 months. So this whole thing about now saying, oh, it's a surprise, oh, they're throwing something on the ballot. This has been this has been a conversation that the council and the Planning and Zoning Commission have been having for half a year at least. And this was put on that list because the members of the council and the Planning and Zoning Commission said this is important. We need to have continuity in our leadership roles. I've been here for a little bit over a year, and I've had 10 city council members. So when we were down at TML, we were talking about this because we've gotten a little bit of notoriety. The articles that have been issued or published in the Wise County Messenger got into what's called the Texas Connect, which is TML's overview, which they shoot out to all of the cities in the state, and it basically says the city administrator is under review for embezzlement, and then it talks about how the audit is going and all this type of stuff. And so these people that we work with are coming up and asking, so how's it all going down there? And all of these things are much larger in scope when we're talking about this, and being able to have these conversations and do these types of things internally and to be professional about it reflects much broader in the nature than what we're talking about. And if we decide as the council that you guys would like to change the direction, this is where we need to come and work. This is the area where we should be focusing our time. This is the important stuff because this is what's driving the expenditures that we have. This is where we're spending our dollars. And this is going to ultimately determine whether we end up over here or we end up over here.
So that page is not actually in the packet.
I didn't put it into the packet. This has been in the packet multiple times. It's shared out into the public as well. It's on the city's website. I can send you the link again if you'd like. But this is something that we've had on the agenda and has been out a number of times.
It may predate me. I haven't really seen anything, but that's actually good information.
So again, what I'd like for you guys to do is go through, look at this overview, and if you guys say, oh yeah, we hate it, we hate the logo, we hate the fonts, we hate the colors, please come back with some recommendations. I don't want to hear I don't like it. Be constructive in the feedback. Give us some samples of what it is that you would like to see, and we will go through and we'll make those adjustments and get this updated. But this is what we've provided to our firm that's working on the website, and this is what they're using. Now, because we're using a style sheet, it's pretty easy for them to go in and update the colors or the logo, or to update the types of fonts that we're using. So if there's things in here you'd like to see changed, please, go through, look at it, and let me know what we've got. And then from the standpoint, here's the where we're at right now, and so the website that we're working on is getting updated. We're working on a number of the different elements that will be incorporated into it, but we've made substantial progress over the last 8 weeks. I've had to miss pretty much every one of our meetings to kind of move this forward. So this is behind schedule. I haven't had the time to focus and work with our team on this. So we're going to have some progress to catch up on. But all of this is going to get rolled out. I'm hoping that we can still meet the time frame that we initially talked about, which was December, but it's getting closer, and we still have some gaps to close. So again, I will forward this link out to you guys. They are working on the discussion forum right now so that the council can actually have these online discussions about agenda items and still meet the requirements of the Open Meetings Act. So you will be able to come in here as a body, and when there's an item on the agenda that you guys want to discuss before the meeting, you can come in here and you can do that there. We're doing the testing of it right now, and we should be able to roll that out and finish that and move on to the next part of the project here in the next 2 weeks, hopefully. We still have the integration of our GIS system, and we still have the agenda management software system that we're working on, but we're making progress on both of those as well. So, again, we're hoping to meet that initial time frame, but we'll see where it's at, and I'll give you additional updates. I'll send these links out to you guys so you can come back with any comments or recommendations that you might have.
What did we budget for this exercise?
It's like right around $12,000. So if you look in the
We haven't
packet,
exceeded that, obviously, because
No.
we're not over budget of anything.
so if you look in the packet on that, you'll see what the range in prices were for the others. I went ahead and included that, what the process was to get here and what we're doing right now where we're at. So you can kind of see what that range of prices were. So that's going to wrap us up for the work session.
So
925.
9:25 is good, all in favor? So, can we take that?
I'm either walking away or you're just gonna do it anyway.
No, dear, I'm trying to.
So this is the last time. Anybody that wants to speak, if you fill out your form, I'll get it on the mayor's table, and that'll be like the first item up.
Yeah, and I understand, yeah, but. Yeah, yeah, totally. Yeah, I meant to pass that down to you, John. I've flown it across there if you could do that. That's good, you know, I see a couple Snickers, grab them.
Well, we replaced all the batteries that needed to be, and that one didn't show up. It had a little indicator that said it was new batteries, so we didn't replace those ones, I guess. We'll have to use rechargeable ones, so we're not burning through so many of them. Two triple or double A's, I think. 3 double A's, something like that.
standard leadership. And I look like this, maybe now, there's no sophisticated part of my training. I go 30, 40 miles.
Yeah. Yeah.
Well, you need people, right? Oh, yeah, no, well, that's all corporate stuff, so it doesn't affect, it affects me, but it doesn't. Just manufacturing, manufacturing, all the manufacturing plants and, parts distribution and Moline, Denver, and Atlanta.
Really, not everywhere.
Now,
Are the different units? I mean, why wouldn't
that's
everybody-
the only, it's only union,
I wouldn't
Wow.
everybody needs that.
because the other ones are not union, those are, Dallas is not, Dallas, Stockton, Portland. It's not, they're not union.
So Scott, they're not gonna be very loud. If you go to the back, you can hear them, but if you put it up too much where you can hear it all the way to the front, you get feedback. So it works great on the audio online,
Okay.
as long as you lean forward and speak into the mic.
I think we buy him a headset, really, that has the little mic'd up thing. Okay, good.
On the court TV shows, they got little thing that puts on.
So at church, the little belt thing, and he just puts it there, and I grant you, it comes across. It's loud. Uh,
Current comment.
I would assume.
15 minutes ago. So let's all agree.
What are we agreeing to here? I'm not very good at this stuff, so let me see here. Somebody makes a comment.
I don't think we.
Okay.
Well, this is
thank
not
you.
an item on the agenda. Well, it is an item on the, no. This is an item on the agenda, but we're not talking, we don't need to talk about it.
Oh, the almond ones, yeah.
Steve, they're called nuggets. Those are the best ones.
Y'all have something in common. What a
Yeah.
scary thought. I'm sorry, I had to point that out, just to make everybody uncomfortable.
We're both married too, Scott. Have a wife. Family.
I didn't go there. Wasn't even.
Huh? Is she what?
Cindy, is your wife named Cindy? He's eating one of his nuggets, so.
No, my wife's name is not Cindy.
Ah.
Have a good night, Larry.
So you'll be back for the next meeting?
It's just, can we discuss this? No, we're not in the meeting, so.
All right, let's go ahead and,
We'll bring it up
let's start our regular session.
afterwards.
John Taylor?
Scott Johnson.
Steve Meisner.
Oh, Julie Berger.
All right.
I
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice. Honor the Texas flag, pledge allegiance to thee, Texas, one state under God, one and indivisible.
All right, so, we had our, no consent items left. So I got these in order I received them. Jimmy Smith. 3 minutes. Comments, 3 minutes.
My name is Jimmy Smith. I live at 8870 Edge Pond. I'll try to keep everything inside. I've come to these meetings since I moved my family here in July. We lived in Arlington for 38 years. I came here to get away from a lot of the things that the big city has to offer. And some way or another, I found my way here at these city council meetings. I don't know why I chose to even get involved, but I have some observations, and I guess it's probably because in the short time that we had been here, I love it. But what I've observed in these meetings, there's a lot of them to be done. The council, the city has a lot of growing to do, a lot of growing up to do. And I feel like a lot of this has been covered tonight. The social media, the personal opinions and agendas and, you know, dislike for members or administrators that you guys can get out of your own way. I question how a city can have confidence in an administration that can't seem to get out of its own way. And I hear a couple of things that may seem small, but this is a recurring issue that I've noticed. It seems that there's always someone who doesn't have the agenda. I feel that that's embarrassing as a council, that we have an administration that's holding meetings and it's not prepared. You have to be better. Everybody's got to get on the same page. Everybody's got to be informed. We've got folks showing up that are not informed. We're not getting 100% of what we're here for. The audio, I know everyone's upset. The audio is not good. This room carries well. It's not fair for people online. That's not free. That costs money. But this is an empty room. I hope there's no people online. Those folks can't hear what's going on. It's a disservice. Use the mics, test the mics. I'm not going to call anyone out in particular. Get into the mic, speak up, be in the room. People need to hear what you got to say. Because if they can't hear, every one of these meetings runs long. People are spending hours and they're walking away with not much. I touched on the online behaviorship. You guys touched on it a lot tonight. I would like to see improvement moving forward, because what I've seen to this point, beyond behavior in this room towards each other, as far as I'm concerned, it's unfit for leadership. Shouldn't be there. And I sit here and I wonder, how many more issues are hanging out there? How many more witch hunts are there going to be? When are we going to get out of the way and do something, or do what we're here to do? I have comments in the city of Fort Worth is coming. These are things that mean something to me. May not mean something to anybody else, but I keep hearing Fort Worth is coming. Yeah, it is coming. And we're either going to get absorbed and well, these things, I knew when I moved down here, I was going to be going to have terrible internet. And we were basically gonna be on our own. But one thing is an issue, the streets are an issue. It scares me to think that if we have someone that's elderly out there, that, God forbid, emergency services can't get to them fast enough because of impediments like streets, we need to educate everybody, the entire city, those aren't free. And hate raising taxes all you want, and doing whatever. That's a big deal. And these TML meetings and the things that we're learning, and there's other money out there besides just raising taxes. Educate yourselves, so you can educate your city. And it says, and I know it's streaming.
Thank you, Jimmy. Thank you. Stephen King. You're getting to be a regular.
Yeah, listen. There'd be a lot of fun. So. So Mr. Jimmy. Moved out, you know what we signed up for when we moved out here? Same way. Well, what? I take care of myself, leave the city alone, they leave me alone. Then they implemented taxes. Now it became a different ballgame. Steve ran on that he did not want taxes. We'll take care of the city administrator, city secretary, use their salaries to go to fix the roads. We want a small city, we don't want anything to tell us how to do it, or anything, or any taxes, nothing, we'll take care of roads. He stayed true to that. This day, he votes no on everything. And that is what was voted in a year ago. They got rid of all the incumbents, Scott, who started the taxes, and all council said, we do not want taxes. And that's what the majority of the voters wanted. And then everything kind of got turned around. And we are where we are today with a very divided council. And what has happened in the past few months is unexplainable. I don't know. There's no way around it. So the best we can do is push it aside, put it in the closet, put it somewhere. We're not going to settle it. We're not going to settle a thing out of this. We've got to push it aside and move on somehow. If you disagree with Ben or the policies of the spending, and just vote no, you're going to win some, you're going to lose some. That's that. But the big reason, like Jim said, we got to stop that. It is bad leadership. Thank God that you're up here, not me. Cheers. I think you're doing a great job considering everything that has been going down the pipe. But we're going to have to change the course now. So know what your agenda is. If your agenda is to save money and not spend, that's my agenda. And waiting for the tax base to build up when we can get water. We should not burden residents with infrastructure for the future. Without the future. We wait, let's stop sitting here, get our tax base up. Then we can spend as we go. Just like we're seeing up here, and we're going to do for that in the open session. But with our municipal project that they're doing the road, some deals. Now we need a. And so we could do everything in increments. We could have went and just said, all right, we're going to go over, we're going to fix all of the drainage. Do that, and maybe not even take out any of those everything, fix all that, and then go and fix these roads in the back and grass come forward. We have a large tax base bringing in, maybe we don't even need to take out money. We don't need to raise taxes. We trust that our growth is going to take care of it, we have money in the bank, we don't have to go out and borrow. Now, water, this is a different animal, and Ben has told us what it's gonna cost to get into the water business. It's a great business to be in, but it's an expensive business. I'm in it till I saw that there's millions and millions and millions of dollars. We don't have large tax base, probably $1,000. We are extremely small. We're at the bottom of the chain. That's why we cannot spend, we cannot borrow, we gotta save and wait for the growth to come in, it's inevitable. And then gradually we'll be able to do these great projects, but most now, and there's so much list I want to say. On the website, you're showing us who's that group, what group that.
It's Acuna is the name of the group that's,
It didn't say website or anything.
they're an IT consulting firm. They do website.
They do everything.
Correct.
My God, who has a pretty bad name out there?
Have a bad name?
Very bad name. There used to be a search engine that was terrible back in the early 2000s, and everybody was laughing. So maybe IT's good, but so diversified. Everyone in Texas, this believe, Bridgeport, Justin, Argyle, only ones that get and serious flux. Now, they can't see any money, but we're going to and the next year, say, everyone will say, well, everything is better than this. Watch that thing did this last. And a year ago, there was that money, did what we have now. Now, right? Going with the community, we're going to go through the way, and you're doing those city plus like everyone else.
So civic testing requires that the council then vote required for doing that. So
Texas, this believe, why they did that? I can go on.
council form that was requested by the city council. About a quote in the proposal from them.
Come back here to say, we need to get someone else.
So I'm ask for somebody else. The council requested that we update the website.
I'm sorry. I have another question. On the 3-year terms, you say the council requested that. I'm here all the time.
Well, I can say the discussion, the times where it was discussed, when it was on the agenda, and the council said, yes, we want it on the upcoming election.
And I don't think it's a good deal. You should earn your election. And so if you take care of the residents, it doesn't matter if it's a year or two, it doesn't matter, you will be reelected. I tell you right now, 2 years is a long time. Find that out soon. That's a long time.
Was council voted. This was
Before my time, I voted against it.
you showed up for any of the meetings.
What?
That was held during the Texas Rural Leadership Programs. And you said that you had no interest, and we did.
So that means the council needs that.
Where the agenda was established and he showed up. Joe Max Wilson sat in the back of the room for more than half of those meetings probably. But it was built to an open meeting agenda just like this to discuss, because we already had an item on the agenda related for the election. We were gonna have to call an election for the municipal development district, so that we could collect sales tax from the ETJ, increase the sources so that we can make those available to us. We talked to the council about routing up some money. This is an item that you guys have been talking about for 6 months. Would you like to include this on the election? And the council said to approve, yes. Special election for the municipal development district was $700 plus the contracts. $700 is for the notification of the or for the notification of the newspaper. There was an additional cost for the second item.
If you realize that we do 3 years, that the council no longer be able to appoint temporary council people to fill vacancies. Now, for the special election, every time that we
vacancy. So how you do it, on how far you are off. You're still going to have an election every 2 years for the, I mean, two people are going to be up on the ballot every year. And so if you decide you have to go to a special election, it's not going to be different than what we're doing. It doesn't have to be filled. If you're going to call a special, if you're going to call a special election, you have to, but the council has the right to leave a vacancy. They don't have to fill, just like right now, they don't have to fill a vacancy.
Sorry, guys.
City council did not approve that.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you.
Thanks, John.
Thank you.
Anybody else?
I'm sure.
Arnie, he had to leave. I think he got called out.
Anybody else want to speak?
No, I think that was it. Is that it, Mayor?
Nobody
I
online?
think that's it. Anybody on?
We didn't get any
I
forms.
don't have any forms, so, all right, let's go on to, new business. Number A, letter A, discuss, consider, and act on a resolution authorizing the city administrator to execute an agreement with city auditor regarding the fiscal year 2021. So our auditor, I'll just kind of, our auditor is going to retire.
No, lucky him.
He's going to retire, so, he will, every year report that the next audit will be done by the company that he's turning it over to.
So it's going to be a 1-year transition. So he's going to continue to act as the bookkeeper, prepare the financials, and then turn it over to another firm to actually conduct the audit. The reason for this is there was a rule change, and he has to have all of his audits peer reviewed, whereas it used to be you had to have a certain number of the audits that you conducted reviewed by a peer. So it's going to make a lot of these small shops or these small auditing firms, it's going to drive up the cost substantially. And he just said at this point, it's not worth it for him to continue. So they're going to maintain the price for the current audit that we have under contract, and that'll give us an opportunity to work with this other firm, MWH Group, and we can determine whether or not we would like to work with them moving forward, or we can go out for a request for qualifications. But we've got the audit for the year ending in 2021 secured, but they have sent over engagement letters that state that they're going to do it for the current contracted price. And
MWH sent those letters.
correct, we got a letter from MWH, and we've got a letter from William Spoor. So what I'm seeking is for the authorization to execute those agreements and continue to move forward to get our audit completed in November.
So in 2022, we're going to have to find somebody to do it.
Correct. We can determine if we've had an opportunity to work with MWH, and the council can say, yeah, we like them, provide us a proposal and we can go with them, or we can look at going out for qualifications and, basically choose from whoever responds.
Okay. So you're just looking for an agreement for this year's final year audit?
Yeah.
Why did we skip number 9, Mayor?
Consent items that we didn't have, we could audit, it wasn't here, so.
Okay. Oh, yeah, see, under 9. Good point, though. Good question. Okay, so we already have a contract from Mr. Spoor. MWH has agreed to pick up his work,
Yes, to act as his peer review.
peer review.
He'll still conduct the bookkeeping activities, prepare the financials. They will do the audit, the testing of the transactions, and they will prepare the audit report.
But he's only done it for 1 year.
Yes, he's just going to do it this 1 year, transition it to them. Basically, I think he's selling his book of business and providing them a foot in the door to all the cities that he works with. So hopefully they can pick up and collect some additional clients moving forward.
So he's selling his Rolodex to MWH.
That's what it sounds like, yeah.
Yeah, okay. Well, according to Robert's rules, we can't say anything until we make a motion and get a second. Believe it or not, that's the way it's supposed to work. So
That is correct.
flip the page here. I make a motion that we authorize the city administrator to execute an agreement with the city auditors regarding the fiscal year 2021, which encompasses Mr. Spohr as the primary auditor and his peer group is MWH, agreed upon with the original contract. Is that appropriate?
Yeah.
A second.
Okay, all those in favor?
Well, now we can have discussion. So, if there's no discussion.
More discussion. Okay, so Steve voted.
But we're in 2021.
Correct.
That fiscal year that just ended, so we did an audit in November. So that's going from October of 2020 through September of 2021. That's the audit that we're talking about. And then we'll have to hire an auditor for the 2021, 2022 fiscal year.
Okay, all those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed?
No, everybody voted.
Okay.
No opposed. All right. Item B, discuss, consider, and act on a resolution authorizing the city administrator to approve an expenditure not to exceed $100,000 from the contingency fund for the reconstruction of the drainage infrastructure. And we talked about that last meeting, the pipes that rusted through and
Yeah, but we didn't talk about $100,000.
We talked about $350,000.
That's the whole project.
Well, that's to fix, if we were to go in there and fix it, that's what the numbers are here, you can see. Just kind of give you an update overall, they've completed drainage work for all of the hilltop area. They're going to be moving to Montana courts this week, so probably Wednesday we'll be out there doing that.
Just right down
Yep.
here.
The final part of the project for the hilltop area is the 9 large culverts that are basically taking 1,200 acres of water and getting them under hilltop. Those are 60-inch culverts, and you can see them here from the pictures. The bottom third or quarter are completely corroded. So
They don't look like 60 years.
yeah, we went in and measured them to just verify and make sure that that was the size. Long story short, there's already compression occurring, so these culverts are starting to collapse. So the fear is that if we go in and we work with some of these options, the gravity of those existing culverts that we have in there will basically add about 12 inches of concrete into the bottom of those culverts, and it will provide a solution for 5 to 7 years. But it doesn't stop it from potentially collapsing and having that road fall in. In addition to that, we have to build the head wall, and that head wall is going to cost $50,000. And when that failure occurs, or when we have to come back in and fix that, we're going to have to tear that head wall out and redo it. So we're talking about spending around $65,000 plus the $50,000, and that's all going to be basically a short-term fix for 5 years. So we'll probably
Wall on one side only?
Huh?
There's a head wall on one side only?
both sides.
Thank you.
The next option is to look at doing layers. So taking the 16-inch culverts and inserting 54-inch line, 40-inch line, depending upon what we can do. Basically, force concrete around that to fill in the space between the smaller sleeve and the existing culvert that we have in place. That's a long life, 20 to 30 years. It also allows us to do a little bit of adjustments. Right now, those culverts are installed against the grade, so it creates a lake underneath that road, which is why that corrosion has occurred. It's constantly holding water if there's any type of moisture coming down that pipeline. If it's across all ground, we're looking at about $150,000 plus $50,000 for the head wall, but it will give us a 20 to 30 year life extension on those existing projects. Now, we can value engineer that down. Basically come in and say, what, we've got green. We're going to put sleeves in 5, and we're going to leave the other ones alone. And we're gonna try and strategically place those to where we can provide some support to the other culverts to try and keep them from collapsing and failing. The other option is, which, that's three sleeves, so out of the nine, we just fix three of them and hope that the others do not collapse or do in the time frame. So cost-wise, you're basically looking at $50,000 plus the head walls for the three sleeves. When those other sleeves fell, or not sleeves, when those other culverts fell that you want to get replaced, again, you're going to have to tear the head wall, and you're going to have to make the repair, fix the road above it, and then reinstall that head wall. So it's going to make it expensive, but we do get some additional life out of it potentially if those other culverts can survive the compression. The concern with the engineer has and the concern that the contractor has is when they go out there and they do that work and they start to come out and do the compaction and start to really work on that, they're worried that some of those culverts may just fail.
Start running the heavy equipment over.
Correct.
Right.
The option is replacing them with concrete box culverts. So they're looking at 7x5 box culverts. If we replace the entire stretch of them, we're looking at around $276,000 plus $40,000 for the head wall. Because of the concrete box structures, we're not going to have to put in as much distance on that head wall. So we'll probably save around $10,000 on that. This becomes a permanent solution. If we decide we don't want to spend the full, $276,000, then you can look at the value engineered portion of it, which is basically to come in and reduce that to a portion of those culverts. Again, you're at risk of those other culverts failing at some point in the future, but we can convey a substantial amount of that water that we need to through those partially replaced culverts and hopefully position them in such a fashion that they'll provide support and keep those other culverts that we need to play from collapsing. Now, there's also the option of coming and saying, okay, the Box Creek culverts, could we do two of those, and then could we sleeve some of the others? So yeah, there's a combination of things that we could do to try and make it work. The one thing that the box culverts allow us to do that is beneficial, and we can do it to a small degree with the liners, is to change the grade of the pipes so that we're getting the water flowing through instead of having it back up and build on that side of the road. We got one pipe, the one here you see behind the red dot, that's the sixth culvert from the left. That actually is low enough to where we can put in a 48-inch sleeve, and we can create the grade to consistently drain that out. But it's going to be one of the 9 which allows for the water to flow. So it will help, but it's not going to do what we would see if we were to go in and actually do the full fix. As we talked about previously, the council, they approved the streets improvement project and the proceeds for it. We have a contingency fee built into that project for about $350,000. We were hoping to use that $350,000 to close the gap on the overall shortfall that we have. Now, we did some other things, getting that grant for $350,000 helps to close the gap. We partnered with the county. They said, if you'll help us fix this road, then we'll come in and we'll do the labor and equipment portion of repairing Wilson and Cruiser, which saved us enough money where we could spend $100,000 on another street that's within the city limits, and still save about $150,000 that we can put towards the overall project. So we've stretched the dollars about as far as we can at this point, but this is if this culvert collapses, then you're talking about having to come out and, especially if it's after the road's been fixed, having to come back out and repair that road, and anybody on that side of the culvert will not be able to get out of the city, out of the neighborhood. That is a single point of ingress, egress.
So what road is that on?
That's
The main road?
Mhm.
Is that the one right after you come in? So my next question, obviously, 100-year flood, the volume is contained in those 9 pipes. Can't we pour 3 concrete box culverts and just eliminate the rest of them? Crush them in and fill them up with gravel?
That was my,
So,
I got out and looked at it 2 weeks ago, and it didn't look like, it looked to me like the original developer put all those just to save time and fill, and they didn't really look like it needed to have 9 culverts in there.
so I asked the same question. We had that same conversation to discuss, what would we need? Well, the 100-year flood requires over 2,000 cubic feet per second. And that's what this right here provides, basically to the dock. If we were to go with the box culverts, if we use 5x5 box culverts, I think he said we need 7 side by side in order to convey the same amount of water. If we're going with the 7x5, I think we need like 5 of them side by side to convey that same water. That's what you're looking at for the $276,000. So we can go, we can do that, and it's going to reduce the number of culverts that we would need to replace, but it is going to be substantially more money. Now, I think that we can reduce this $276,000. They're looking at this and saying, and if you look at it, you have the quote in front of you as well. So we're saying they're going to have to do a temporary pavement detour, and it's going to cost around $60,000. I talked to the engineers today, and I said, you know what, if we're doing these box culverts, we don't have to tear out the entire road at one time.
Right, just do half.
We can do half the road. Their concern is you're not going to have people out there all the time, and that's going to be a 15-foot drop off. And if somebody drives into it, I said, well, I can hire a full-time security guard for a heck of a lot less than, $60,000, have them out there with flashing lights and make sure that the 48 hours when they're working on that project, we don't have anybody drive into the
We could
ditch.
go buy some of them old Jersey barriers from I-35 and put them up there, can't we?
So we could probably get that price down, and that's what I was going to say. I told them to come back and kind of push back on that a little bit with the $60,000. If we need to, we can actually, put 2 security guards out there, 1 on each side, and make sure that nobody approaches it. We can put the flashing lights. We can stop everybody and make sure that they are aware of what it is. So I think in all reality, we could probably get the box culverts done, not to the 100-year flood, but to what the current existing passage was. So they went out there to fix it. There was at least a foot of silt in the bottom of all of those pipes. So that comes back to around 1,600 cubic feet per second. And, that savings that we're talking about, getting down to the $190,000, that's coming back and replacing the 1,600 cubic feet per second. And that's looking at it because over the last 30 years, we've never had any time where that has even come close to breaching the surface and coming across the road. So if you're looking at it from the standpoint of the historicals, this last year we had, 1 day where we got 6 inches of rain, and you didn't even see the water accumulating down that area. So
What's the size of the watershed on that?
1,200 acres is the amount of the area that's used to come through that point.
Right, that's the shed on that, okay.
Our box culverts available.
So they told us that they can get the box culverts. If you look in here, it tells us it's going to take them about 40 days to complete option 3, but they will be moving. They're already moving on until we determine how we want to make this correction.
I was just concerned in the availability.
Yeah.
Because they're not.
Yeah.
All right, so we're cheapest we can do this for, it looks like, is $100,000. But then we have a chance that 5 of the sleeves can collapse. If that road collapses, any one of those sleeves,
4 of those sleeves can potentially collapse.
any one of them collapses, then the road's no good. We got to come redo the whole thing. And so we're back to the 300,000.
We'd have to just replace the one that collapsed, and you'd have to repair that road at that point.
So another $100,000.
That's $1,000. The
60.
well, so
You'll have to tear the head wall out on it, so.
yeah, we'll have to tear up the head wall, and we'll have to.
That part at least.
Correct. Yeah.
So 20,000 for that, and then 30 So 50 or 60,000.
Yeah.
For each sleeve that collapses.
Each sleeve. The sleeve ones, you won't have an issue.
Sorry,
Yeah,
each tube. each
correct.
Couple. Tin organs, like my dad always called them. Yeah. So 60,000 for 5 of those is $300,000. So we spend $100,000, we sleeve 3 of them, 2 collapse. So we're spending another $100,000 then, and that's only, and that is good for 20 to 30 years until the next one collapses, or we end up replacing all of them.
Correct. Ultimately, what we're looking at is do we want to kick this down the road a ways and try and get as much life out of it as we can? Because this was unanticipated. When they came out and did their evaluation, they looked at that and they assumed that those would still be in decent shape. But as soon as they pulled that silt out of the bottom of it, you can see from the pictures, I mean, they're
gone.
They're gone. Yeah. Which is why when they came back and they wanted the 100-year flood levels, I said, well, we've been operating with this silt level for all those years and we've not had any issue. What does that look like? And their engineers came back and said we'd be comfortable meeting the current flow and what that was, which is about 1,600 cubic feet per second.
So that's 200, 68, 300.
So the complete package was what, 300,000?
So, yeah, the complete package at the 100-year flood is the $276,000 plus the 40.
And they could shrink that down by doing.
Like taking it to 1,600 cubic feet and meeting.
Thank you, that was it.
Correct. So that takes us down to the 190,000, and actually, that would probably be about a $40,000 cost for the head wall as well, because we're reducing the amount of concrete that we need on that head wall.
Call it 230.
Yeah.
So we're putting a $50,000 head wall in no matter what we do, and any failure is a cut of that head wall and a partial replacement. So we're throwing $50,000 into a bad situation, because the head wall's got to be there regardless. And that, again, that was both sides.
Yes.
Why does the head wall have to be there if there never has been one?
Well, we're building back to TxDOT standards, so we're talking about coming in and building the roads right. So if we want to build the road right, then we do this. If you don't want to do it, we can cut out the $50,000 of that.
Don't we have to change city standards?
Right on the standards. So if the council decides they want to do it, the issue arises in that when you have a developer that comes along and you're trying to put in head walls and you say, you guys didn't. Short-term fix until you could solve it. I mean, we can always come out there if it fails, and we can throw a new plate over it, or still plate over it, and make it functional, like we did over on Canyon Road. But you still have to come back and cut the wall. You have to replace that, CMP or some type of solution. You have to replace it.
So the sleeve going from a 60-inch to a 48-inch, doesn't that affect it down to the 1,600 cubic feet per second?
So the 6 of the devices, or 6 of the culverts, 48 inches, and the rest of the 54, we can still meet the 1,600 cubic feet per second threshold.
So how long are those?
5 feet.
45, each one is 45 feet? Gosh, that road ain't nowhere near 45 feet.
Well, we've got a fair amount of those up on the side in order to make sure that the road does not fall off the edge.
With the head wall,
Right, the culverts get short.
Correct. We don't have as much of that sticking to the side.
It's taken into the engineering.
Correct.
so I don't see how a plastic slate can cover it.
Still sleeves.
What?
Sleeves.
It's still asleep, they don't.
So that'll be in place.
Okay, so that brings up the question, why can't you use plastic?
Because plastic is going to have the same structural integrity on steel.
You got concrete.
Concrete without steel, it does not have the structural integrity.
No compression to concrete, there's no tension in concrete. So
It-
when it's spherical, when you apply pressure, this part might be under pressure, but this part over here is under tension. So it's kind of the story of the circle, engineering wise. It holds up better, but it's always in either compression or tension. It just transfers it around the circle.
So there's no option on here that's only $100,000.
That will give us the most possibility.
$1,000 head wall.
Is already in the budget. We're already gonna build it. That's why it's plus 50. We're looking at the first one, the 150, the 100, the 50, the 276, 190.
That's a pretty valuable piece of information. Did you state that in the beginning?
Yeah, that's why it breaks it out. Otherwise, I'd have just given you the solid number.
The intention was all along to put a head wall.
Yes.
I thought they could hack off the culverts. So when they desilted them, and go back to the picture, I'm just curious. Well, they've already dug out, I can see. Did they hack the pipes off? They're in that shape all the way through.
Yeah.
Okay. And I'm sure as engineers, they would have looked at that. But I just had to ask the question. All right, back to the numbers, please. So ignore the 50,000 on the head wall for the moment.
How many, there's 9?
9.
If we only sleep 5, that means.
4. Yeah. Basically, we'd sleeve every other one, and you'd leave one in between to hopefully get supported by the surrounding sleeve devices.
Depending on how well they pack it and the structural strength when they are packing it, because they may collapse one in the process.
Absolutely. And we'll be coming back and having a conversation about
Adding another $100,000 on the.
$1,000. It'll be $20,000 if you look at the. A little bit more than that. Yeah.
Okay, I see what you're saying.
So the advantage to the sleeves is they don't have to close the road.
For the sleeves.
So we can sleep 5 now and sleep 4 in 2 years.
Down the road. Yeah.
Even with the head wall already there, we can still do it.
They sleep every other one. You have to tear the head wall out in order to come back in and re-sleeve. If one collapses, you won't be able to get in there and work on it.
Taking money out of the contingency fund, how much is $100,000 from the contingency fund? How much is in the contingency?
$50,000.
So for 65% of the price, we get 5 to 7 years. 65,000 versus 100,000.
No.
We only get 5 to 7 years.
20 to 30 year life.
Well, I'm talking about the very first one. I'm just saying for 65,000, we only get a very limited period. But if we add another 35 to that, then we get the 20 to 30 year life.
Hold up.
Right, as long as everything. I'm looking at those. Man, they're gonna run all them graders across there and I almost guarantee one of those is gonna collapse.
Well, they've been running, trash trucks and oil field water trucks and all that kind of stuff.
The water field, do the oil field water trucks go over those roads?
Yeah.
Okay.
Got, several people down at the end have 18 wheelers that they drive home.
So you run trash trucks. Those are the heaviest things on the road over those. The issue though is when they take that surface off the road and they rework the base, they're gonna run the vibrating compactor over top of that. That's a totally different animal than, driving a truck
1,000-pound truck.
over that. Because we need to get a certain degree of compression on those in order for that road and that subsurface to be a solution.
Right. For sleeve, 3 sleeves, so I'm one, skip a couple, do another one, skip a couple, do another one, and then you're done. Or
Right.
don't even do the first 2.
1, 3, 5, 7.
Well, we have to do 6 because that's the one that we need that will help us get the water across. So it'll be 6 and then coming off in either direction, whatever we can to make it work.
So it's really, they're skipped it up.
They turn it into a pond on the road.
Which explains why all the setup. All right. John, you always have brilliant comments in here. Step in here.
I just bring my personal experience from the way my dad would have done things growing up at the farm, but Dad wouldn't have wasted 100,000 on the chance of it failing in 10 years when we could, I know it's twice as much money, but if we fail, we spend twice as much money plus what we spent. So we spent 400 instead of 200.
If you have a failure in that 20 or 30 years.
Yes.
Understand though, if we spend that contingency, that's branding iron, to put it into terms. That means branding iron, we fix the drainage, like Steve said, but we don't fix the, Stephen King said, fix the drainage, but we don't fix the road. The road surface as it is now. We'll do our best to improve it even better quickly in time, but
Hot patch. That should be a dirty word somewhere.
I hate to spend that money, but I don't want to throw money away. I don't want to waste money. That's,
You know, I'm being an engineer, I'm right there with you, John, but at the same time, I'm looking for roughly a third of the price, and I'm gonna get a possibility, I'm gonna get a 70% chance of making 20 years for a third of the price.
you're talking about $100,000, you're talking about another $130,000 to finish the project out.
Well, it's $100,000 versus 276.
Well, it's $100,000 versus 180, because $100,000
gets us back.
gets us back to where we are with the silted culverts. The 276 gets us to a 100-year solution.
Oh, I'm sorry, you're right. I value engineered on the last bullet. Okay, I asked that a minute ago, sorry.
Yeah.
I got lost in the first one.
And that's why I don't go to Vegas.
So that's
I don't gamble.
culvert. Well, we won't talk about Vegas, will we? So, okay, so there's a culvert, box culverts at 190,000. But it's just the 1,600.
No, really, in value, we got 180,000 because we're going to have about a $10,000 savings on the head wall. So you're talking about an $80,000 delta.
All right. Well, now, how many box culverts?
4 7x5s, I believe, to get to the current 1,600 cubic feet. Well, yeah, that equals a 12-inch silt. With the engineers today to basically
Be knowledgeable.
each one of these out of them, initially this is what they sent, and I was like, well, none of these are happening, none of these work. So what can we do? Can we go back and can we increase the retention on the other side of the road? Because if we increase retention and slow down the water, we don't need as much water to flow into the road at that time.
Well, it sounds like we already have a retention pond there.
Yeah, yeah. Unfortunately, the culverts don't do it.
Well, then you got a retention pond, so we don't need the 100-year flow.
Is the retention on private property?
So I don't have to go look at the plats. Maybe those were signed out to private property when we are looking at the top of the head.
those were platted, they probably were assigned.
Yeah, they probably were.
It was probably property, platted, whatever you want to say. Well, that's a good point, John. You at least get box culverts for 190. That 276, I can't even.
But we're 90 days out. It's up to 90, 12 weeks, so that's 90 days.
So there's nothing gonna be done between now
Starting this week, they'll start doing the surface prep for, I think, Layfield and
Lane.
Lane. They're going to be coming back there. We're going to be doing and stabilization of those segments. So they're getting ready to start pulling
Are
those.
they gonna grind up the old road, just grind it all in and lime it?
Hopefully that plans call out. A lot of these roads are going to require remarking the southern base, treatment, and then coming back and putting the asphalt over the top.
So I was really focused on the, again, that leaves a retention pond. And I'd say a 60 to 70% chance of life for the 20 years. And this is not totally uneducated. I have a couple of CE courses in there, so. But I don't, for another, okay, throw in another $80,000. We actually get box culverts, which we don't have to worry about failing. And we get the proper drainage. Since we already have the retention pond, then we can say, we'll go to the 1,600 square. I call it square, but cubic feet per second.
That's a lot of money.
Yeah.
It is a lot of money.
That's a lot of
Oh, water.
Oh, no, it is a lot of water. It's a lot of money. I'm sorry, I didn't get it. Screw the water. Well, I'm sorry to say that. That's a lot of money. So I mean, so we spend
All of
$190,000.
them's a lot of money. Which one are you saying is a lot of money?
190,000. So we,
100,000 is a lot.
yeah, so we hit 190, so what does that do to, not Hilltop, whatever you said? Branding.
So we already have a like $450,000 shortfall. So we're hoping to take that $350,000 and use that to close the gap. If we use, you know, $180,000 of that 350, $450,000 gap just does not get decreased as much. And we have other items that come up along the way that we identify, or we identify, and we have to use some of that additional contingency.
So the people on Hilltop will like us and people on Branding Iron will hate us.
Well, it doesn't have to be branding iron. I'm just trying to give you the equivalency of the dollar amount.
That was a good statement, because there are people on branding iron who got their pitchforks and they're sharpening it.
I thought branding iron was paved, a reasonably short time ago.
And the first, I think, was paved. That's what we're trying to retain and keep. So if you came back and said, hey, let's go do branding, let's save Hilltop, you'd save Hilltop every time, because you're going to spend, you know, $3 or $4 per foot to extend the life of that road substantially. When we fix branding this year or next year, we're going to have to rebuild the entire road. It's at loss of, it's end of life. There's no patching or recovery.
So that would have been 12 years ago, 10 years ago, when we spent $100,000 on that first mile. Joe Max and Lou Moran and I and Mike Granger was on there. Mike Georgia was on there.
So the way the resolution is written is it states, you know, basically not to exceed $100,000. So if the council is going to want to go through the box culvert, then when you make the motion, you have to make a motion to amend that amount to the amount that's necessary for that box culvert. If you're comfortable with doing the sleeves, that's kind of what I brought in, because, you know, like Scott said, you roll the dice, but you gotta I figured you have a better than 50% shot that you'll get some life out of them. And we're probably gonna have to come down and fix the roads in the future. And when you come back to fix those roads in the future, you may just incorporate that in there. So you really are throwing away $150,000, but you're hoping that in 5 years, that $150,000 is much less impactful for you in the city.
Like you said, the rooftops and it becomes more, I want to say profitable, but more, more funded.
If this is not to exceed $100,000, that's what's on the agenda. I don't think we can increase that.
You can make a motion. If it's on this subject, you can make a motion for any amount, as long as it's on this subject.
My concern is, I keep thinking about the road, Brandon Iron, I drove that the other day. Incredibly poor road. If we take away, I mean, I understand what you guys are talking about, and all makes sense, but I want to make sure that we don't walk too far away and know that they're not gonna get the road fixed if we spend all that money on fixing the road.
If I live on Chisholm Hill, I think that
I'm still PO that Martindale's not on that list.
Everybody except for a few people.
What it is, though, is it's pretty difficult to identify any part of the project which you can cut out and save the difference that we have. It just so happens that the shortfall that we have is equal to that road. You could say, okay, we're going to pave and fix the last half of it, and we're not going to do any work up on Chisholm Hills. You could come up with the savings that way. But somewhere, if we do not have the ability to close that gap, we're going to have to cut stuff out of the project. Yeah. And this is one of those situations where, like people out here were talking about, nobody wants to spend money, don't raise our taxes, don't do anything. But if you don't fix this, then you're potentially wasting $150,000. And in the last 5 years, or 7 years, or 12 years, it could fail in 6 months. And we're talking about having to go burn those $150,000 to fix it.
Yeah, I can't argue that, for sure.
So obviously, the first, I say obviously to me, the first bullet's out. I'm not gonna pay that kind of money for 5 to 7 year life.
Sorry.
Sorry?
No problem. You make it.
And I'm still stuck on the value engineering, but
Yeah, I wouldn't consider it bad.
yeah. So 5 sleeves for $100,000, and we're rolling the dice. 60–70% chance of getting 20 years out of it. But then you're gonna have to come back eventually and fix it. But as Steve King kindly pointed out, we'll have way more rooftops then.
We hope so.
I'll bet money on it. If you'd like to bet against me, I'll take that bet. Value engineering for the $190,000. John, I can't argue with it, and my OCD engineer says, heck, we're gonna get the drainage, we're gonna get solid foundations, and away we go. But $80,000 is still a lot of
It's
money.
$80,000 delta.
$80,000 is still a lot of money.
But you'll burn through twice that if it fails.
Well, you said that if one fails, we could maybe fix through it for 20 or 40,000.
Well, you still have to cut the head wall out. So you're going to have, I mean, you're going to have to come out and put out the steel. You're going to have to do traffic control. You're going to have other costs associated with it.
Reset up of all the construction.
Yep.
That's true. We're already set up for that.
So the install liners, it's talking about all of them, and then the second one that says 5 sleeves
Mhm.
and 3 sleeves. So the first one is,
Absolutely. Online.
The 150,000 is all not.
That's so close to put, doing it right, why would you
That's $30,000 delta.
Why would you
Yeah.
consider,
Well,
I
know
saving you
it's a drainage.
30,000, but why would you consider spending 150 to, versus 180 to 90 to do it right?
To have an appropriate foundation
Yes.
and drainage. Yeah, I don't know, in my eyes, it's 5 sleeves or permanent culverts, the smaller set of permanent culverts, concrete box culverts. I don't know, it's,
So you get paid the big dollars.
do what,
That's
sir?
why you get paid the big dollars to make the big
Yeah,
decisions.
that's why I'm sitting here getting paid all this money. All right, Miss Julie's back. I don't wanna leave her out of the fun.
So just for your reference, this issue, I have the authority to make the decision. Because the council has already approved the budget and has already given the budget
funds.
approval and the funds appropriated the dollars for it. I brought it out here for you guys to discuss it so that you can kind of understand, you know, this is what we'd be looking at. And if it were me making the decision, then we'd be doing the $180,000 fix. And we'd be looking at coming back and cutting it out. But the council says they want to have greater input on how these dollars are being spent. So that's why you're seeing it here in front of you.
And it is an agenda item, so that makes it official.
We'll give you 1 minute.
And where was this money coming from?
It's the contingency fund from the bond proceeds.
Oh, okay, so it's already been allocated for that, project.
Yes.
Yes.
Well, we've already, and we've only got to repair all the roads already.
Mhm.
So that means even less roads get repaired.
Yep.
Correct.
Yep. Do you need the cord over there?
Now, this is the last slide, and it's going to be locked on the screen. We're not, no.
I tried to tell you.
It should stay on the screen.
I'm telling you. I would say that, but that would make me heresy, so. Well, that's a good picture to be on the screen, so we'll go with that. You could cool picture.
So there's been a lot of discussion, a lot of. There's quite a few options. There's 3 main options.
Yeah,
The other option is to do nothing.
Well, that's true.
yeah, that's true. We could wipe our hands of it so that it's,
Spend it somewhere else.
that's exactly right. And make the evil city administrator make the decision. Oh, I'm sorry, did I say that out loud? All right, I'm gonna step out on a limb here, and this is really, and this ain't easy. John, help me, some more input. I kind of know everything.
I told you I don't gamble, and Dad always told me to do it right.
Right.
That's where I'm at.
All right, I'm going to make a motion to authorize the city administrator to approve an expenditure not to exceed $190,000 for the contingency of box culverts under whatever road it is, for the reconstruction of drainage infrastructure not previously anticipated in the streets improvement program, or could have just said new business item B, right?
Correct.
I just like to hear myself talk. All right, I made the motion.
I'll second it.
Can I vote against my motion?
Do whatever you want.
Yes.
Okay, all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
I feel better.
Steve?
Opposed? Nay?
No. All right. So, as I get the breaking vote here.
Guess who gets the hot seat now?
It's a tough one, guys.
It is.
Can't have that road fail though. Can't have the road,
Can I offer a
people
little
getting in and
suggestion?
out of their homes and
Try a little negotiation.
EMS. I mean, I feel really bad if some could get ambulance back there, there's people, road fail or whatever, so. I think I vote to do it right.
Affirmative?
Affirmative.
Mayor, that is all I have for the meeting this evening. So,
Can I ask a quick question? Are we anywhere on hiring a city secretary?
Not right now, Shannon.
Are we looking?
We have contacted
SGR.
SPR.
So we're trying? Okay.
I
Yeah,
actually talked to him at TML,
I did too.
Good.
and it's,
Thank you.
there just aren't a whole lot of candidates right
We're trying. And then my last question is the code of conduct stuff for the city council. Does that include all of the staff at the city?
now. It's for the council, and I think it does include your staff. if I remember right.
Fantastic.
So they have a
You
handbook,
have,
don't
you
they?
have this,
Mhm.
it's in your book,
We have an employee handbook.
it's in your.
Well,
in your
what we were
book.
talking about tonight. I
Yeah,
just wanted to
that's all-
make sure
it's
that
all in there.
included everybody.
Yeah.
Thank you so much.
All right, so we have a motion to adjourn.
Make a motion with adjourn.
I'll second it.
All right, all those in favor?
Aye.
That's what I'm.
Well, you know, I started it. All right. So, no, I was gonna. I was gonna. Well, I mean,